Chapter 1344. The two exploding souls of the golden crow quickly flew towards the black hole. The black hole seemed to have tasted the sweetness as it frantically absorbed the souls of the golden crow. This caused Tang Zheng to suffer. His body was completely filled with agitated pure yang energy. The Empyrean fairy's pure yin energy was simply a drop in the bucket. Looking at Tang Zheng's conflicted and painful appearance, the Empyrean fairy also understood this point. Her heart trembled as she revealed a difficult expression. This level of intimate contact was simply not enough to replenish enough pure yin energy. Tang Zheng was facing great danger unless she could change to a more intimate method. Of course, she knew what kind of method it was. She had occasionally heard Tang Zheng communicate with other girls in this way. Just listening to it made her feel unbearably shy. After all, most of her thinking was still the model of the ancient people. The 3 obediences and 4 virtues were deeply ingrained in people's minds and were not easy to change. If she had more intimate contact with Tang Zheng, she really could not imagine what kind of scene it would be. Just thinking about it made her feel weak and shy all over. Although the Empyrean fairy was powerful, she was still a girl in the end. She had many of a girl's natural instincts. Ah! Tang Zheng could not help but cry out. The intense pain almost engulfed his nerves. The pure yang energy this time was more violent than any previous time. It seemed like it was really going to end his life. Bang! Tang Zheng knelt on the ground with one knee. The stones on the ground were heavily smashed by his knee and shattered into pieces. Tang Zheng! The Empyrean fairy involuntarily separated from him and subconsciously shouted. Stop absorbing the soul of the golden crow. Otherwise, you will definitely die. The Empyrean fairy's persuasion did not work. Tang Zheng clenched his teeth and shook his head with difficulty. He squeezed out a few words from between his teeth. No, I must finish absorbing the soul of the golden crow. I can't let it remain in this world. His attitude was firm. The Empyrean fairy could tell from his tone and eyes. She subconsciously raised her head and saw the black hole in mid-air, frantically absorbing the soul of the golden crow. She wanted to destroy the black hole, but she immediately dismissed the idea. She had seen the miraculous power of the sky-swallowing technique too many times, and she knew very well that she might not be able to destroy the black hole. Moreover, this was Tang Zheng's wish. If he destroyed the black hole, what if he suffered a backlash? Do I really have to give myself to him? The Empyrean fairy thought in a daze. She was extremely conflicted. Boom! The 8th golden crow's soul was hit by the shooting sun arrow and exploded into light fragments. Ah, no! Mo's heart-wrenching cry resounded through the clouds, but he was powerless to protect himself, so how could he care about the golden crow's soul? There was only one golden crow left. If it was shot down again, then Mo would have no hope at all. Seeing Li Xiaotian draw his bow and aim at the golden crow's soul, Mo's heart was resolute. He hysterically shouted, "Don't even think about hurting it." Whoosh! Mo multitasked, controlling the golden crow's soul and dodging the shooting sun arrow's attack. Bang! However, multitasking had serious consequences. Qiyu was already closing in on him step by step and was surrounded by danger. His distraction immediately allowed Qiyu to seize the opportunity. The battle spirit sword pierced through the air with a brilliant heavenly might. Mo was completely unable to block it and had nowhere to hide. Clang! The 2 swords clashed. The Ganjiang sword bounced back and fiercely hit Mo's chest, letting out a dull sound. Mo was sent flying backwards. Before Mo could stabilize his body, he heard a small cracking sound. His heart trembled as he quickly stared at the Ganjiang sword. A crack appeared on the sword's body. It was clearly the place where the battle soul sword had clashed. The Ganjiang sword and the battle soul sword were both saint weapons. They both had sword souls, but in different hands, they would release different powers. The battle soul sword was clearly stronger and actually damaged the Ganjiang sword. His beloved sword being damaged, Immerse felt as if he had been struck by lightning. With a pu sound, his body leaned forward and spat out a mouthful of blood. His face became dispirited. The Ganjiang's sword was actually damaged. He muttered to himself as if he was possessed. Ever since the Ganjiang's sword was refined, it had accompanied him for countless years. In hundreds and thousands of battles, the Ganjiang's sword had always helped him. It was like a part of his life. But this time, the Ganjiang's sword was damaged. It was as if a part of his life was damaged. One could imagine how he felt. Suddenly, he felt something and raised his head. His gaze shifted from the Ganjiang's sword to the sky. The remaining golden crow's soul was still emitting light and heat. However, a green shooting sun arrow approached it. No! He shouted and tried to control the golden crow's soul to dodge, but Chiyu had already arrived in front of him and raised the battle soul sword. Whoosh! The battle soul sword fell, bringing along a sharp sword chi that filled the sky, completely locking onto Immerse. This was the threat of death, as if the god of death was summoning him. He finally couldn't care less about controlling the golden crow's soul. Taking a deep breath, he used all his strength to raise the Ganjiang sword. Whoosh! The Ganjiang sword was raised, bringing along a blood-red light that dyed half the sky red as it faced the battle soul sword. Boom! With an explosion, the golden crow's soul was struck and turned into specks of light that filled the sky. At this point, the 9 golden crow's souls were completely shot down. The sky suddenly darkened and turned from day to night. The air was no longer dry and hot. The heaven and earth were no longer a huge furnace. The 9 insufferably arrogant golden crow's souls were completely reduced to history. Especially when all the specks of light disappeared into the black hole, the golden crow's soul had completely disappeared from the stage of history. When the black hole disappeared, Tang Zheng tumbled and fiercely fell to the ground. Without enough pure yin energy to balance it, he had no way to restrain the restless pure yang energy in his body. However, he was very happy to finally see the golden crow's soul completely disappear. This meant that the apocalyptic crisis had temporarily disappeared and he had succeeded. Tang Zheng. The Empyrean maiden was startled and hurriedly supported him. The pure yin energy from the skin contact was like a drop in the bucket. Although it gradually seeped into Tang Zheng's body through the skin, it was not enough to change the situation. With great difficulty, Tang Zheng squeezed his eyes into slits. Like a child, he innocently said from the bottom of his heart, "I succeeded." The Empyrean fairy's heart felt as if it had been fiercely struck. In her life, she had seen too many ambitious and ruthless people. However, she had never seen anyone who was willing to sacrifice their life for countless unrelated people. Tang Zheng was the first person to do so. The impact in the depths of her heart was not small. Her eyes were almost blurred as she stared straight at him. At this moment, Tang Zheng's image was incomparably great. It was as if he could support the heavens and earth. No one could compare to him. Chiyu and Immerse's cultivation were higher than his, but so what? In the Empyrean fairy's heart, these two people were more concerned about themselves and their own power. However, neither of them thought about those unrelated people. Those people were like ants that could not even cause a ripple in their hearts. Boom! A ball of flame jumped out from Tang Zheng's body. With a touch of his clothes, Tang Zheng began to burn fiercely. This was the sign of the pure yang energy completely erupting. The flames grew bigger and bigger. Not long later, Tang Zheng became naked, completely exposed in front of the Empyrean fairy. The raging flames were unable to harm the Empyrean fairy. She stared straight at him, completely at a loss. His physique was very strong, with well-defined pecs and 8-pack abs. His Apollo's belt was clearly visible. Her gaze could not help but move downwards. She glanced at him and immediately retracted her gaze. Her heart was palpitating, as if her heart was beating wildly. She could even hear her own violent heartbeat. Her breathing could not help but become hurried. From ancient times until now, she had never been like this. Of course, she understood the reason behind it. However, she was unable to make up her mind. Mo Xia was forced into a corner by Qiyu. When the Ganjiang sword and War Spirit sword collided once again, the powerful force destroyed everything. His fingers loosened and the Ganjiang sword flew out of his hand. "Come back!" he shouted loudly, trying to summon the Ganjiang sword back. Unfortunately, the Ganjiang sword did not respond at all. Kacha! Another crisp cracking sound caused Mo Xia's heart to instantly fall into the abyss of despair. He watched helplessly as the Ganjiang sword split into two into four, and finally into countless fragments that scattered in the air. The Ganjiang sword was completely destroyed. A peerlessly powerful sacred artifact had ended its life just like that. Even the sword spirit was no exception. It was torn into pieces by War Spirit sword's powerful sword Qi, destroying the Ganjiang sword from its foundation. Puff! Puff! Large amounts of blood spurted out from Mo Xia's mouth. His expression was lifeless, as if he had become a fool. He had truly suffered too much of a blow. The soul of the Golden Crow and the Ganjiang sword had been destroyed together. His life had practically reached a dead end. Suddenly, he saw Tang Jing burning in flames. His despair immediately turned incomparably malevolent as he shouted hysterically, "Tang Jing, all of this was caused by you. Now, you have reaped what you sowed. With the eruption of pure yang energy, you will undoubtedly die." Qiyu also turned his head and stared at Tang Jing in a daze, as if he was reminiscing about his past self. He also had the 9 yang saint body, but since he was young, his strength was strong. Who knows how many women took the initiative to throw themselves at him, so before the age of 20, he had enough pure yin energy to balance his pure yang energy. When he was 20, he used a great divine ability and a great opportunity to walk out of the shadow of his death from the explosion of his body. From then on, the pure yang energy in his body had reached a peaceful state. There was no need to worry about this point. He had so many resources by his side but wasted them all. He deserved it. It's just a pity that such a good body was wasted. Qiyu shook his head and sighed. Qiyu had occupied Song Yu's body. This body naturally could not be compared to the 9 yang saint body. However, Qiyu was an expert after all. He used other aspects to gradually make up for this flaw. Of course, this took him a lot of effort and wasted a lot of time. Tang Jing struggled in the flames. Although the Empyrean fairy exploded him, she was helpless. It was as if he had truly reached the end of his life. Chapter 1345. The Empyrean fairy hugged Tang Jing as she struggled internally. It was not as easy as the previous battle. "What's wrong with him?" Li Xiaotian rushed over and anxiously asked. She finally gathered her energy and used the shooting sun arrows to shoot down all the Golden Crow, turning the earth into night once again. Although it was night, the flames on Tang Jing's body illuminated the peak of Heavenly Mountain, allowing them to see everything clearly. His pure yang energy has erupted. "I'm afraid he won't live for long," the Empyrean fairy hesitantly said. "What, he won't live for long? Then what do we do?" Li Xiaotian was shocked. "Draw a large amount of pure yin energy into your body and balance it with pure yang energy. Apart from this, there's no other way," the Empyrean fairy explained. Without the slightest hesitation, Li Xiaotian walked towards Tang Jing step by step, like a brave warrior. She naturally understood the meaning behind the Empyrean fairy's words. She had to have a relationship with him in order to have enough pure yin energy to balance the pure yang energy. This way, he would be able to escape this calamity. "What are you going to do?" The Empyrean fairy stared at her as she asked in shock. Li Xiaotian's expression did not change as she said, "Of course I'm going to save him." "You want to save him?" The Empyrean fairy was shocked by Li Xiaotian's decisiveness. She did not hesitate at all as she happily made this decision. This made the Empyrean fairy feel a bit ashamed. "He can't die. He is a hero. A hero should not die," Li Xiaotian said. The Empyrean fairy hesitated for a moment before hesitantly saying, "But you're sacrificing too much." Li Xiaotian's lips hooked up in a beautiful arc. Her charm was imperceptibly displayed, causing people's hearts to flutter. Not only men, but even the Empyrean fairy felt that Li Xiaotian was incredibly moving. Sacrifice? Is this a sacrifice? This kind of hero, who knows how many women in the world would fall for him? I'm the one who took advantage of him. Cheap. The Empyrean fairy found it hard to understand what she was thinking, but she was also deeply shocked by her words. Do you know the relationship between him and the women in the family? Are you still willing to be one of them? Asked the Empyrean fairy. What's wrong with that? If this is not a good thing, why do those people want to keep him away from me and take him for themselves? After hearing Li Xiaotian's question, the Empyrean fairy was speechless. Those people like him in the open and in the dark. They are inextricably linked to him. Even Mu Hongyan is no exception. Li Xiaotian said as she walked to Tang Zheng's side. The raging flames did not stop her at all. What, Mu Hongyan? The Empyrean fairy cried out involuntarily. Why is she with Tang Zheng? Hee, what's there to be surprised about? Outstanding men have always attracted countless women. How did you find out? Li Xiaotian did not answer. Under the same roof, no matter how well it was hidden, there would still be clues. Li Xiaotian's mind was far better than others. She was very observant, so naturally, she did not notice anything fishy. She was not surprised and chose to keep Tang Zheng's secret. The two people involved thought that their plan was flawless, but they did not know that Li Xiaotian had already discovered it. Li Xiaotian raised her foot and stepped into the flames, ignoring them. The flames immediately ignited her clothes. She did not scream. This flame was very different from ordinary flames. It was an effect produced by the release of pure yang energy. After he stepped into the flames, he was completely enveloped by the flames. The Empyrean fairy subconsciously took a few steps back, distancing herself from the flames. The flames were too dazzling. It was like a fiery red curtain, blocking Tang Zheng and Li Xiaotian. From the outside, it was impossible to see the situation inside. The Empyrean fairy's expression kept changing. She stared at the flames without blinking. Of course, she knew what was happening inside. She had a strange feeling in her heart. Why can she do it without hesitation, but I can't? Tang Zheng is very outstanding. Other than my father, he is more outstanding than any man I have ever met. If I were to be with him, he would definitely be an excellent partner. Unconsciously, she felt a slight sourness in her heart. She stared at the flames in a daze. Qi Yu and Immerse saw Li Xiaotian walk into the flames, but they did not stop her. Qi Yu snorted disdainfully, "It's too late. The pure yang energy has completely erupted, and it is extraordinarily strong. Her strength alone is not enough to help him overcome this crisis. That's why he's dead for sure." Immerse said, venting his hatred. His hatred for Tang Zheng could be described as monstrous. "Now it's your turn to die," Qi Yu said as he looked at Immerse with killing intent. "You really want to kill me?" Immerse asked. Qi Yu laughed loudly. "At this point, do you still want to ask such an idiotic question?" Immerse was dejected. There was indeed no need to ask. The two of them were mortal enemies and both wanted to kill the other. "General Mo, quickly leave." Suddenly, shouts rang out. The Yellow Emperor's old subordinates at the peak of Heavenly Mountain all gave up on their battle with the four symbols venerables. They rushed into the sky and attacked Qi Yu. Immerse had almost given up hope, but the actions of his subordinates reignited the light of hope. Whoosh! He retreated without any hesitation. The Yellow Emperor's old subordinates attacked Qi Yu from all directions. Qi Yu's killing intent surged as he roared, "Reckless things, seeking your own deaths. I'll help you. Battle soul, slash. Battle soul slash down." With Qi Yu as the center, the sword light flew in all directions. This was only one sword, but it was more tyrannical, sharp, and decisive than tens of thousands of swords. Shwa, shwa, shwa. The sword light was like rain, rapidly falling down. The Yellow Emperor's old subordinates all raised their treasures in an attempt to block. But all of this was futile under Battle's soul. All of the treasures could not withstand a single blow. There was only the sound of the sword light hitting treasures and bodies. In the next second, everything was silent. All of the attacks collapsed. The old subordinates of the Yellow Emperor seemed to have been immobilized and were frozen in midair. Immerse did not stop and did not look back because he knew that the outcome had already been decided. Save me, save me. A weak voice entered Immerse's ears. His heart trembled as he saw the dying Yimeyu lying on the ground not far away, looking at him pleadingly. Yimeyu had suffered heavy injuries and could only watch as her own people were defeated and her so-called plan was foiled. She was on the verge of despair. She knew very well that in such a tragic battle, what awaited her was death. The only thing that comforted her was that Qiyu was certain that Tang Zheng would die without a doubt. Tang Zheng was finally going to die. She was overjoyed. She had looked forward to this countless times, but she was always disappointed. She was on the verge of despair, thinking that Tang Zheng was a monster that would not die. Finally, good news came from the heavens. Tang Zheng was no longer able to create a miracle. She really wanted to see Yi Dingdong's reaction after hearing the news. It would definitely be very exciting. She was looking forward to seeing that scene. Of course, all of this was her idea. The current plan was to preserve her life so that she could see that scene. Therefore, she used all her strength to shout weakly. As expected, Immerse heard it and looked at her. She immediately looked at him pitifully and lovingly. Immerse waved his hand and the ring on his finger released a bright light. He kept Yimeyu inside and flew into the distance with a whoosh. Yimeyu was the successor of the Nightmare Lord and controlled the Heart's Dream. She was of great use to Immerse, so he would naturally save her. However, he had no way of saving his other subordinates because they had to block Qiyu. A few of them could not block him, so all of them had to press forward to stall Qiyu and give him a chance to escape. A dignified expert of the Mahayana realm had to run for his life. If word got out, it would be extremely embarrassing. But for the sake of his life, so what if he lost face? He seemed to be afraid of seeing his subordinates die miserably at the hands of Qiyu. He only glanced at the raging flames on the mountain peak from the corner of his eyes, and then, without caring about his own safety, he used all his strength to escape. The old subordinates of the Yellow Emperor froze in midair. A few seconds later, their magic treasure shattered into pieces. Following that, they shattered into pieces. Blood splattered everywhere. It was an incomparably tragic sight. The sword light of the War Soul sword was like silk. Not only did it kill these people, it also cut them into pieces. Only Qiyu would be able to use such a terrifying technique, causing others to feel fear. Looking at the terrifying deaths of their companions, the remaining old subordinates of the Yellow Emperor did not escape. Tens of thousands of years ago, they were the most valiant and tenacious warriors, and now, they were still the same. They didn't even need to exchange glances to encourage each other. They just stared straight at Qiyu and charged forward without hesitation. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. The War Soul sword flew up again. The sword light was resplendent, dispersing the darkness. In everyone's eyes, there was only the sword light left. It was extremely resplendent and terrifying. The air seemed to have frozen again. The old subordinates of the Yellow Emperor froze again. Everything was the same as before. Everyone turned into pieces again, but this time, they were even finer. Obviously, Qiyu watched Immerse escape with his own eyes while he was entangled by these people. The anger in his heart was too strong. Immerse, this is what you get for attacking me last time. Saint King is dead. I want all of you to die with him. Qiyu roared. His voice was like thunder, rumbling and spreading. The old subordinates of the Yellow Emperor heard this voice. Immerse, who had already escaped far away, also heard this voice. His heart was as cold as 10,000 years of ice. The Empyrean fairy was also attracted by this voice. She muttered to herself in shock, "Saint King is dead?" She had a deep impression of Saint King. Could it be that after the Battle of Mount Tai, the demons were ambushed by the old subordinates of the Yellow Emperor and Saint King was killed by Immerse? That must be it. The mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. Saint King escaped with the injured Chiyu, but they fell into the encirclement of the old subordinates of the Yellow Emperor. No wonder Chiyu was so angry and used such a terrifying method to kill the old subordinates of the Yellow Emperor. She had no sympathy. Both sides were her enemies. If they hurt each other, she would be able to reap the benefits. However, she couldn't feel happy. Looking at the raging flames, her heart was in turmoil. Was Li Xiaotian really unable to save Tang Zheng? Chapter 1346. The Empyrean fairy was worried about Tang Zheng and Li Xiaotian. Before she could decide what to do, Chiyu had already wiped out all of the Yellow Emperor's former subordinates. Mountains of corpses and seas of blood. The peak of Heavenly Mountain was like hell on earth. Chiyu descended from the sky and walked towards the Empyrean fairy step by step, saying, "Fu Yao, he can't be saved." The Empyrean fairy suddenly turned her head and looked at Chiyu, who was covered in killing intent. She expressionlessly said, "He won't die." The heaven-swallowing technique can absorb energy from the outside world and transfer it into his body. Last time, the savage aura was like this. He was lucky enough to survive, but this time is different. Seeing the Empyrean fairy remain silent, Chiyu was not in a rush to attack and slowly said, "Do you know how terrifying the energy contained within the 9 golden crow souls is? If anyone were to absorb the energy within, their strength would definitely increase by a terrifying amount. However, there is no such thing as a free lunch in this world. That much energy is like a bomb that cannot be completely absorbed by a single person. It would be enough to explode one's meridians and body. Moreover, he has the 9 yang saint body and the golden crow's soul has already ignited his pure yang energy. With these 2 fatal conditions added together, even an immortal would find it difficult to save him." Chiyu spoke with certainty and did not seem to be lying. The Empyrean fairy was able to discern this and her heart skipped a beat. Although she had already guessed that the situation would be dire, she did not think that it would be this severe. What should she do now? Should she just let him die? No. She immediately made a decision in her heart. She definitely would not just watch him die. She walked towards the flames without hesitation. Chiyu was shocked and loudly shouted, "What are you doing? Do you want to make a meaningless sacrifice?" The Empyrean fairy turned a deaf ear to him and walked with firm steps. Her eyes were resolute. "Don't even think about it." Chiyu immediately ran towards the Empyrean fairy. The distance between them was not far to begin with, so he arrived almost instantly. He wanted to stop her. "Didn't you say that no one can save him? Why don't you let me have a try?" The Empyrean fairy was blocked and asked jokingly. Chiyu's face stiffened. He did think so, but there was nothing absolute in this world. Especially since Tang Zheng was too strange, Chiyu would not allow anything to happen to him. If the Empyrean fairy broke in and caused an accident, he would regret it so much that his intestines would turn green. "No," Chiyu said bluntly. "Hee, looks like you're not 100% sure either," the Empyrean fairy mocked. Chiyu's expression turned ugly as he said, "Of course I'm 100% sure." The Empyrean fairy shook her head. "You're just fooling yourself. I have to save him. You can't stop me." After saying this, she lifted her foot and stepped into the flames. "In front of me, don't even think about disobeying me," Chiyu shouted. Battle's soul flashed and enveloped her. From front to back, left to right, the Empyrean fairy seemed to be in a dangerous whirlpool. The sharp sword chi blocked her steps. Although it was only a step away, she could not cross it no matter what. You're only a first-grade Mahayana realm cultivator. You won't be able to jump in my hands. Just give up. Chiyu changed his sword technique and the sword light quickly gathered. It was like a cage, firmly trapping her. If she dared to take half a step, she would be injured by the sword light. The Empyrean fairy understood this point, but she did not hesitate to take this step. Pooh! Blood splattered. The Empyrean fairy was injured and blood flowed out. Roar! With a roar, the Thunder Cloud Beast and the Scarlet Moon Beast attacked Chiyu at the same time. They also wanted to do their part to stop Chiyu. Chiyu casually waved his hand and an invisible sword chi burst out from his fingertips. He did not use a sword at all. With just his fingers, the sword chi burst out was far beyond the imagination of ordinary people. Peng peng. The two strange beasts flew out. They did not even have time to scream before they fell into the distance. They smashed into two large craters and dust flew everywhere. They wanted to get up again, but after trying, they fell to the ground again. They gasped for breath and could not get up again. Two little things who don't know death. Chiyu snorted. A huge shadow shrouded over his head. Chiyu raised his eyelids and saw the four symbols Venerable's huge figure. Chiyu's expression changed. He said with a complicated tone, "Do you want to be my enemy?" The four symbols Venerable originally obeyed his orders, but now it was dead set on following Tangzheng. One could imagine how Chiyu felt. The four symbols Venerable did not answer, but its actions showed its answer. Whoosh! A huge arm came crashing down with the force of 10,000 caddies. Your fate was already decided the moment you betrayed me. Chiyu was filled with killing intent. He raised two fingers and put them together. They were not inferior to a sword at all. He pointed lightly and the two fingers directly hit the four symbols Venerable. Pooh! A small hole appeared in the chest of the indestructible four symbols Venerable. The four symbols Venerable was injured. This scene was simply too shocking. The Empyrean fairy saw this and opened her eyes wide in disbelief. She had always thought that the four symbols Venerable would never be injured. She never thought that she was too naive. Chiyu's understanding of the four symbols Venerable was far greater than others. Moreover, his current strength was too terrifying. Even the four symbols Venerable could not withstand the destructive power contained in this attack. The four symbols Venerable lowered its head, seemingly very surprised that it was injured. However, it did not retreat. Its arms still smashed down and hit Chiyu's shoulder. Bang! The dull sound was deafening. Chiyu frowned but did not retreat. He stared straight at the four symbols Venerable and said, "You dare to attack me." He raised his hand and grabbed the four symbols Venerable's arm. One was big while the other was small. There was a huge gap between the two arms. However, the four symbols Venerable's arm was raised and made cracking sounds. The four symbols Venerable seemed to be struggling to resist Chiyu. However, it was futile. There was no way to truly resist Chiyu. The veins on Chiyu's arm bulged. With a sudden wave, the four symbols Venerable's huge body flew up into the sky. Whoosh! The sound of air being torn was heard. The four symbols Venerable turned into a black dot and streaked across the sky like a shooting star. It actually disappeared without a trace. The four symbols Venerable had been flung away by Chiyu. Moreover, it was unknown where it had landed. This scene was far more shocking than Chiyu defeating the Thundercloud Beast and the Scarlet Lunar Beast. The Empyrean fairy was flabbergasted and asked, "Chiyu, what realm has your cultivation reached?" My cultivation is not something you can imagine." Chiyu did not say it explicitly, but there was no doubt that his cultivation had reached an extremely terrifying realm. The Empyrean fairy knew that there was no way she could do anything. "Empyrean fairy, surrender obediently and I can still spare your life," Chiyu said sternly. "Spare my life? Would you be so kind?" The Empyrean fairy said mockingly. "Of course, I will be kind occasionally." Of course, Chiyu would not be merciful. He had obtained some information from various sources. He had always known that the Empyrean fairy was the Emperor of Heaven's daughter. He did not know much about the Emperor of Heaven. After all, they were not from the same era. However, one thing was for sure. The Emperor of Heaven was an expert. Moreover, the Emperor of Heaven was not dead yet. Naturally, he wanted to recruit the Emperor of Heaven for his own use. The Empyrean fairy was a pawn to lure the Emperor of Heaven out. If the Emperor of Heaven submitted to him, then the father and daughter would naturally be able to live. If not, then it would not be difficult to catch them all in one fell swoop. It was just that he did not know that the Emperor of Heaven's soul had merged with Yan Qingyi's body. Otherwise, he would have gone to find Yan Qingyi long ago. He would not have gone to such lengths to capture the Empyrean fairy. The Saint King had died in battle. Qi Yu no longer had a true general under his command. He was in urgent need of a general. The Emperor of Heaven was the most suitable candidate. This kind of general could replace him to do many things. After all, he could not do everything by himself. That would damage his image. After the demons transformed into the Jiuli tribe, although there were many people, there was no one who could be of great use. This was Qi Yu's predicament. The Empyrean fairy could not see through Qi Yu's thoughts. She did not believe that he would be kind. She coldly said, "No matter what you say, it is useless. I do not ask for your so-called mercy. I only want to save him." "Huh, impossible." Qi Yu laughed maniacally. Suddenly, his laughter came to an abrupt stop. Only one word came out of his mouth: trap. The ever-changing sword Qi was like an unbreakable rope that shrunk inward. The Empyrean fairy tried her best to struggle, but the painting of mountains and rivers of the gods of earth and veil could not shake it. In the end, the sword Qi completely trapped her. She could not move at all. It was as if she was tied up by a rope. The Empyrean fairy looked at the formless sword Qi in shock. The sword Qi had undergone a huge change. It had really become like a rope. Qi Yu saw the shock in her heart and explained, "Sword Qi is a kind of energy. Therefore, it also has the characteristics of ordinary energy. It has many forms. Like water, it is ever-changing. For example, what you are seeing now." Only then did the Empyrean fairy realize that she was really a frog at the bottom of a well. She had always thought that sword Qi was extremely sharp and had no other form. However, the sword Qi that trapped her was not only sharp but also flexible. She finally understood that Qi Yu was a true master swordsman. The previous sword god and Tian Chanzi's transcendent flying immortal paled in comparison. They were not even worth mentioning. The funny thing is that Tang Zhang has always treated the transcendent flying immortal as a treasure. He doesn't know that this is the true ultimate sword technique. The true profoundness of swordsmanship is contained within. Qi Yu proudly showed off, not forgetting to mock Tang Zhang. The Empyrean fairy felt powerless. She wanted to resist, but after seeing this scene, she had no way to do so. In front of Qi Yu, she could not even die, let alone escape. This was the gap between them. There was also a gap between Mahayana realm cultivators. Qi Yu hooked his finger and the sword Qi lifted the Empyrean fairy and slowly flew toward Qi Yu. Finally, it stopped in front of Qi Yu. Their eyes met and Qi Yu clicked his tongue. "Qi Yu, that brat, is really muddle-headed. He has the 9 Yang saint body and you have the 9 Yin saint body. You are a perfect match. If the two of you were to have sex, it would greatly benefit both of your cultivations. However, he is stubborn and did not touch you." The Empyrean fairy was both anxious and angry. She loudly rebuked, "Do you think he is like you? He is much more noble than you. What's the use of being noble? Strength is the most important." Qi Yu curled his lips and disdainfully said, "I also have the 9 Yang saint body. I will not let go of such a good opportunity like yours." Chapter 1347. The Empyrean fairy stared at Qi Yu in shock and asked, "What do you want to do?" Qi Yu laughed loudly, "What do you think I want to do? Although I have the 9 yang saint body, I have already passed that life and death crisis. Why would I need you? The Empyrean fairy let out a sigh of relief. You have a greater use for me. Chi-yu said. What use? You are the daughter of the Emperor of Heaven, so I want you to find your father. My father? The Empyrean fairy was shocked. Why are you looking for him? To take him under my wing. Chi-yu's reply was straightforward. What, did I hear wrong? The Empyrean fairy's eyes widened with a look of disbelief. Chi-yu did not care about her reaction and said, You didn't hear wrong, I want to take him under my wing. The Empyrean fairy laughed loudly. As his daughter, she understood her father very well. He was someone who would rather break than bend. It had always been others who submitted to him, so how could he submit to others? No matter how strong that person was, he would never lower his head. You think it's impossible? Of course it's impossible. In my world, nothing is impossible. Chi-yu was full of confidence. The Empyrean fairy coldly snorted and said, You want to use me to threaten him? You are very smart. Chi-yu praised, not hiding his plan at all. You will be disappointed because I also do not know where he is. The Empyrean fairy spoke the truth. The Emperor of Heaven and Enchanting had merged into one, so Enchanting was nowhere to be found. Naturally, there was no way to find the Emperor of Heaven. Speaking of which, the Empyrean fairy really wanted to find the Emperor of Heaven, but she had no clue. Chi-yu did not take it to heart and said indifferently, Who said I'm going to look for him? He'll come for me. I'm sure of it. It's what any father would do. The meaning of this sentence was very obvious. Chi-yu wanted to use the Empyrean fairy as bait to lure the snake out of its hole so that the Emperor of Heaven would take the initiative to find him. Chi-yu's scheming was indeed very clever. The Empyrean fairy's expression changed. She fell silent, not knowing what to do. She knew how much her father loved her. If he knew the news, he would still come to save her regardless of whether it was a mountain of knives or a sea of fire. She wasn't sure if her father was a match for Chi-yu. The current Chi-yu was too unfathomable, causing people to feel a deep sense of helplessness. I'm looking forward to meeting him, Chi-yu said longingly. I won't let you succeed. Don't even think of using me as a bargaining chip to threaten my father. That's not up to you. Let's go. The Empyrean fairy couldn't help but glance at Tang Zheng. That ball of flames was so dazzling that it was impossible to see what was going on inside. There's no need to look. He's dead for sure. Once this fire burns out, it'll be the moment when his life ends, Chi-yu said. The Empyrean fairy bit her lips, causing them to turn purple. She wanted to retort Chi-yu, but she found that there was no way to do so. There's nothing much to see in this fire. Let's go. Chi-yu shouted as he turned around and left. The Empyrean fairy, trapped by the sword Chi, followed him step by step. She looked back 3 times with every step. She wanted to see a miracle happen and see Tang Zheng walk out of the flames. But in the end, she was disappointed. The fire was too strong and seemed capable of burning everything. No one walked out of it. Chi-yu kidnapped the Empyrean fairy and left the peak of Sky Mountain. Only the raging flames were left. The wind blew, causing the flames to burn even higher and more vigorously. The Thunder Cloud Beast and the Scarlet Moon Beast finally crawled up. They turned their gazes from the direction where Chi-yu disappeared to. Their eyes were filled with despair. The 2 strange beasts limped to the front of the flames. They looked at each other, not knowing what to do. They couldn't save anyone. They could only wait at the side for the flames to burn out. This was simply torture. In the depths of the flames, the 2 people overlapped each other. They were surrounded by layers of flames and couldn't be seen from the outside. Even their voices were completely blocked out by the flames. Li Xiaotian's voice was gentle and moving. It was full of temptation. After the intense tearing pain, her heart was filled with joy. She had protected her chastity for more than 20 years, but at this moment, she had completely given it to Tang Zheng. She was completely willing. She was even filled with joy. Fang Shishir and the others wanted to stop her, but in the end, they didn't succeed. She got what she wanted. From now on, she was his woman. Just like any other woman, she could openly stay by his side. This would be the happiest and most fulfilling thing. Looking at the face so close to him, his eyes were a little dazed. He couldn't focus his gaze. This was the after-effect of using the pure yang energy. Li Xiaotian knew that he didn't know what happened at this moment and what it meant to her. However, she believed that once he knew, he would take responsibility. Of course, Li Xiaotian's original intention was to save him. She didn't have any complicated thoughts. Tang Zheng instinctively hugged Li Xiaotian tightly. The pure yin energy flowed into his body continuously. He absorbed it hungrily. His skin had turned fiery red, like burning charcoal. However, this didn't hurt Li Xiaotian. The pure yin energy in her body naturally resisted the heat and flames. This was the special characteristic of flames. It burned foreign objects, but it didn't hurt people with pure yin energy. In the past, Li Xiaotian couldn't sense the pure yin energy. However, at this moment, she could clearly sense the loss of pure yin energy. It was the first time in her life that she felt pure yin energy. So this is what he dreamed of. She muttered to herself, trying to cater to Tang Zheng's needs. Time passed little by little. The two of them were completely unaware of what was happening outside. They didn't know that the Empyrean fairy had been kidnapped. Tang Zheng's consciousness didn't completely disappear. He just lost control of his body. He knew that he had reached a critical moment of life and death. The power of the Golden Crow's soul is too terrifying. Because of the sky-swallowing technique, it merged into my body. If I can't digest this energy and harmonize the pure yang energy, I will definitely die. The energy of the Golden Crow's soul rampaged through his body, tearing his meridians bit by bit. Pa! One of his meridians broke. Finally, it shattered into pieces. The energy was like a flood that broke through a dam. Without the restraint of his meridians, it directly rushed into his muscles and bones. This time, the unimaginable pain stimulated his nerves, torturing his body and mind. He couldn't help but scream. Pa pa! Another meridian was completely broken. An even more violent energy rushed into his muscles and bones. An even more intense pain almost engulfed him. This time, his scream came to an abrupt end. He didn't have the strength to scream anymore. Without meridians, my true chi won't have a path to travel. Won't I be destroyed? Even if I survive, what's the use? He thought in despair. Meridians were an essential part of the human body. It was also the path for a cultivator's true chi to travel. Without a path, true chi wouldn't be able to travel anywhere else. How could one use magic or use magic treasures? Tang Zheng was very clear on this point. Therefore, when he saw his meridians break, his heart fell to the bottom. This situation didn't stop. Instead, it became worse and worse. When the 8th crack sounded, his 8 main meridians were completely destroyed. An ordinary person only had 8 main meridians. When all 8 main meridians broke, their life would come to an end. Even if they survived, they would be like a walking corpse. Tang Zheng was a celestial with the 9 yang saint body. The biggest difference between him and an ordinary person was that he had 9 main meridians. When he saw all 8 main meridians break, he placed his hopes on the last main meridian. Don't break, please don't break. He silently prayed. However, he understood that there weren't many miracles in this world. With the other 8 main meridians broken, how long could this 9th meridian last? Suddenly, a cool wave of pure yin energy entered his body from the outside. Tang Zheng was startled. He immediately realized that this was pure yin energy entering his body. Where did this pure yin energy come from? He was unable to control his body, so he was unable to sense what was happening in the outside world. He didn't know that it was Li Xiaotian who had saved him. But he knew that someone had definitely saved him. Who was it? The Empyrean Fairy? Tang Jing knew what this meant. It was a huge sacrifice, especially for a girl. It wasn't something an ordinary person could make such a decision. He remembered the Empyrean Fairy's kiss. But he immediately thought of Li Xiaotian. She also had a large amount of purine energy in her body, so he couldn't exclude her. Furthermore, she had given him a kiss without hesitation. That boldness had left a deep impression on him. No matter who it was, in order to save me, they all made a huge sacrifice. Whether or not I can pass this crisis, I will remember it for the rest of my life. He silently made up his mind. The pure yin energy was like a timely rain, suppressing the pure yang energy. Even the energy of the golden crow's soul had calmed down a little. It didn't break through the 9th main meridian. The only main meridian allowed Tang Jing to operate his skills and control his true qi, trying to suppress the energy of the golden crow's soul. However, good things didn't last long. Before he could cheer, the pure yang energy became restless again. Like a surging wave, it directly swallowed the pure yin energy. He immediately realized that he was in trouble. This pure yin energy isn't enough. There's no way to reconcile so much pure yang energy. He almost despaired. If the pure yin energy wasn't enough, it meant that all his efforts were in vain. As expected, the pure yang energy was stirring up trouble again. The energy of the golden crow's soul also became violent. It kept colliding in the 9th main meridian, as if it was dealing with the other 8 main meridian, completely destroying it. The 9th main meridian was struggling to hold on. It was on the verge of collapse, as if it could be torn apart at any time. The pure yin energy was still merging into his body. He knew that he still needed more pure yin energy. Thus, his body instinctively reacted, and the range of his movements became bigger and bigger. Li Xiaotian's comfortable moans were no longer gentle. They even sounded high-pitched, mixed with a trace of pain. She couldn't help but frown. But she still gritted her teeth and persevered. With great difficulty, she catered to Tang Jing and transferred more pure yin energy to her. Chapter 1348. The pure yin energy in Li Xiaotian's body was being emptied little by little. Pure yin energy was a vital part of a woman's life. Once a large amount of it was lost, it could endanger her life. Yi Dingdang was a good example. If she did not have the pure yin energy in the gate of heaven to replenish her, she would not be able to recover. How could the intelligent Li Xiaotian not know this? But she still did not reject Tang Jing's request. Li Xiaotian's complexion became worse and worse. Her face gradually became pale, especially under the light of the fire. She looked even more haggard. Tang Jing did not notice this at all. His mind was completely immersed in his body. The 8 main meridians were completely destroyed, and the 9th was in danger. At the crucial moment, the vast and mighty pure yin energy rushed into his body like a flood, immediately suppressing the pure yang energy. The 9th main meridian slowly stabilized and flashed with a golden light. It was like a golden dragon, swimming around. Yes. His body was like a sea, and this golden dragon-like 9th main meridian was swimming around in the sea. This. Tang Jing was dumbstruck. From the 9th main meridian, he felt a surge of dragon energy. Realization dawned upon him as he recalled that the dragon vein in Qin Shi Huang's mausoleum had merged with his 9th main meridian. After that, he had merged with so many dragon souls, and the dragon qi in his 9th main meridian had become stronger and stronger. This time, it was completely revealed, which was especially terrifying. However, the 9th main meridian was actually out of its fixed position. This kind of situation was unheard of. Although the 9th main meridian was swimming around unsteadily, it was still connected to Tang Jing's mind. He could clearly feel that the true energy in it was getting stronger and stronger. The energy of the golden crow's soul was completely dispersed in his body. His body became a vast sea, and the 9th main meridian was swimming in it. Although the pure yang energy suppressed the signs, it still set off bursts of flames in his body. The pure yin energy was like a fire extinguisher, trying to extinguish these flames. Tang Zheng's consciousness became clearer little by little. He watched as the ninth main meridian continuously absorbed the energy of the Golden Crow's soul, and his true energy rose steadily. Boom! A muffled thunder-like sound rang out as his Jinqi rose to a new height, directly rushing to the limit of his meridians. He had directly soared into the sky and reached the peak of the divine transformation realm. His meridians were completely filled with true energy, and once his true energy underwent a qualitative change, he would be able to cross the threshold from the deity transformation stage to the grand ascension stage. His true qi was indeed changing bit by bit. The total amount did not increase, but as his meridians flowed, he absorbed the soul of the Golden Crow from all over the place. The quality of his true qi was quietly changing. Could it really be possible to break through to the grand ascension stage in one fell swoop? Tang Zheng was extremely excited. Before his Jinqi could undergo a qualitative change, the pure yang energy had already gradually calmed down. The pure yin energy was already very weak, as if it could disappear at any time. All of a sudden, his eyes regained consciousness and flashed with the light of wisdom. What entered his eyes was a haggard yet beautiful face. He was shocked and stared straight at the other party. He was hugging her tightly. Her eyes were blurred, as if she could close her eyes at any moment. Their surroundings were still enveloped in flames, but the flames were clearly much weaker. Li Xiaotian. Tang Zheng turned pale with fright. A hint of joy appeared in Li Xiaotian's eyes. He squeezed out a smile with difficulty and stammered, "You're, finally, recovered. You gave me your pure yin energy?" How could Tang Zheng not understand what had happened? The two met each other with sincerity, their bodies naked, and their skin intimately touching. He had previously speculated that it was either the Empyrean fairy or Li Xiaotian who was replenishing her pure yin energy. Now it seemed that Li Xiaotian had saved him at a critical moment. "Don't worry, I'll save you." Tang Zheng comforted. "I know I can't be saved. Now that I've finally become your woman, I'm very happy. Goodbye." Li Xiaotian seemed to have used up all of his strength to say this, and his breathing became very weak. Tang Zheng's heart was filled with all kinds of emotions. Li Xiaotian's thoughts couldn't be more obvious. She was different from other girls. Although she had always suppressed her feelings and didn't tell Tang Zheng. However, this time she used her actions to express her feelings, but the price she paid was everyone's lives. Tang Zheng's eyes couldn't help but turn red. He kept shaking his head and anxiously said, "No, don't say anything. I'll save you right away." He quickly took out the 9 transformations soul return pill and tried to feed it to her. "Farewell." Li Xiaotian's weak words came out of her mouth. Her voice was like a mosquito, but it was like thunder exploding in Tang Zheng's mind. He was suddenly startled and stared straight at her. Her head drooped down and her eyes lost all signs of life. She slowly closed her eyes and stopped breathing. Tang Zheng lost the ability to speak. He just stared at her. The 9 transformations soul return pill in his hand looked like he had lost his soul. "Ah!" Tang Zheng looked up to the sky and howled, hugging her tightly. The howl disappeared, but no sound came out of his mouth. A tear fell. He was crying silently. Scenes of his acquaintance with Li Xiaotian flashed through his mind like a movie. When he met her on the train, she was cunning and scheming. With just a few words, she almost caused him to die under the sword of the cold-faced killer. After that, she followed him like a dog fart plaster and met her in the prehistoric heavenly tomb. She took away her heaven-shocking bow and shooting sun arrows, causing her to fail at the last moment and fly into a rage. For a long time, Tang Zheng and Li Xiaotian were enemies. They were wary of each other and plotted against each other. However, the affairs of the world changed, making it difficult to understand. Li Xiaotian lost his memories and became a good person. Little by little, he began to fall in love with Tang Zheng. He silently accompanied him by his side, gave him advice, seized the Li Palace, and managed it in an orderly fashion. He had known her for too long, and their grudges were so entangled that they almost killed each other. But now, she was actually willing to sacrifice her life for him. The changes in her heart were moving. The scene disappeared, and his gaze landed on her face again. Her haggard face was so beautiful that it moved one's heart, like a sleeping beauty. The corner of her mouth actually curled up into a smile at the last moment, as if to say that she did not regret it and was very satisfied with this result. Tang Zheng's heart felt as if it had been ruthlessly stabbed by a knife. It was dripping with blood, and his heart ached to the extreme. Hoo. He panted heavily, as if he didn't have to use all his strength to even breathe. This was an extremely sad situation. I said I would save you, so I will definitely save you. After a long while, Tang Jing finally walked out of his dazed state. Gritting his teeth, he squeezed out these words. Although Li Xiaotian was already completely dead, Tang Zheng was not an ordinary person, so he naturally would not give up. He had already secretly vowed in his heart that he would save her. Whether it was a mountain of blades, a sea of flames, or the hell of Avicii, he would charge in without hesitation and save her. He took out a set of clothes and carefully dressed her. Looking at her naked body, he did not have any thoughts of lust, only endless love. A woman who was willing to give up her life for him, if a man was not moved, then he was definitely a cold-blooded animal. Perhaps, even a cold-blooded animal would have his blood heated up and his heart melted when faced with this matter. Tang Zheng was not a cold-blooded animal, and his heart had already melted. In the depths of his heart, Li Xiaotian's figure gradually became clear and settled, occupying a place. The two of them had already put on their clothes. Although the flames were still burning around them, they were suppressed by an invisible force and could not approach the two of them. He carried her and walked out of the flames step by step. Every time he took a step, the flames would automatically split to the sides. The moment he completely walked out of the flames seemed to have lost their fuel and extinguished with a poof. The Thundercloud Beast and Red Moon Beast had been guarding in front of the flames. The two beasts did not know what to do and could only wait. Finally, they saw Tang Jing walking out, but he was carrying a person in his arms. When the flames extinguished, they hurriedly limped forward. If Qiyu saw this scene, he would definitely be so shocked that his eyeballs would fall to the ground. He was very sure that Tang Zheng would definitely die, so he did not chase into the flames and kill him with his sword. However, the final result completely overturned his judgment. Tang Zheng did not die and was lucky enough to survive. Actually, according to common sense, Qiyu's judgment was correct. The yang energy contained in the 9 Golden Crow souls was unimaginably strong. When the souls of the Golden Crow were absorbed into his body, the pure yang energy in his body exploded. Furthermore, the yang energy pushed the pure yang energy to an unprecedented peak state. This was not something that could be reconciled with a little bit of pure yin energy. A person's pure yin energy was not enough to reconcile so much pure yang energy. However, Qiyu never thought that Li Xiaotian would give up his life and give all his pure yin energy to Tang Zheng. Every woman had a certain amount of pure yin energy. Because of their different physiques, the amount of pure yin energy they had was also different. Pure yin energy was a part of maintaining life. A woman must have a certain amount of pure yin energy in her body in order to survive. If the amount of pure yin energy was lower than this limit, something would happen to her body. Just like Yi Ding Dang, she would lose consciousness. There was also a lot of pure yin energy below this limit, but they did not dare to use it easily. Qiyu was very clear about this, so even if he knew that Li Xiaotian used pure yin energy to save Tang Zheng, he was not worried. That was because he never thought that Li Xiaotian would use the amount of pure yin energy below the limit. In the end, he even contributed all of his pure yin energy. This was suicide. Qiyu knew that Li Xiaotian was a smart person and would definitely not do such a suicidal thing. However, no matter how much he thought about it, he still made a mistake. If it was the previous Li Xiaotian, she would not even think about it and would not do such a suicidal thing. But now, Li Xiaotian was no longer the previous her, and the person she wanted to save was Tang Zheng. Therefore, she was willing to give up her life. This was a victory that was exchanged with her life, a life for a life. Chapter 1349. Tang Zheng's eyes were red. He raised his head and saw the Thunder Cloud Beast and the Scarlet Lunar Beast. They were looking at him with burning eyes. With a glance, he saw the injuries on their bodies. His heart tightened as he asked, "How are your injuries?" Hearing Tang Zheng speak, the two beasts were surprised and happy. They quickly replied, "Our injuries are not serious." Tang Zheng was relieved. He looked around and saw that there was no one else standing on the peak of the heavenly mountain. An aura of death enveloped the peak. Where are the others? He still remembered that when his pure yang energy erupted, the few parties were still fighting. It was impossible that they were all dead. The two beasts talked at once. One said a little, the other added a little. Finally, the truth was revealed. Tang Zheng was dumbfounded. He looked at the scattered corpses. Those were the old subordinates of the Yellow Emperor. They had all died under War Soul. When he thought of War Soul, his heart was filled with an indescribable anger. That was one of his most precious treasures. However, because the Sword Soul had fallen into the hands of Qiyu, he was particularly shocked when he heard of Qiyu's terrifying killing methods. With his cultivation and understanding of sword arts, he was completely unable to unleash the power of War Soul. The power that War Soul had released in Qiyu's hands made him pale in comparison. Other than Immerse, the old subordinates of the Yellow Emperor had all been wiped out. It was truly lamentable. These old enemies from tens of thousands of years ago, because of him, Qiyu had turned defeat into victory. However, this was not the main point of his concern. He asked in a deep voice, "You said that the Four Symbols Venerable was injured by Qiyu and was sent flying. The Empyrean Fairy was also kidnapped by Qiyu?" The two beasts nodded at the same time. Tang Zheng's heart had already sunk to the bottom of the valley. There was no doubt that in order to stop the Yellow Emperor's former subordinates, although they had succeeded in making the soul of the Golden Crow completely disappear and prevented the destruction of this world, the price they had to pay was too painful. However, we heard from Qiyu that he wanted to use the Empyrean Fairy to lure the Emperor of Heaven out and take him under his wing, the Thundercloud Beast added. What? Tang Zheng was shocked. Qiyu's heart is so big, you actually want to subdue the Emperor of Heaven. He knew a thing or two about the Emperor of Heaven. The Emperor of Heaven was definitely a person who would rather break than bend. How could he submit to Qiyu? Moreover, using the Empyrean Fairy to lure him out, if he really did come out, there would probably be another huge battle. Is the Emperor of Heaven a match for Qiyu? He didn't know. The Emperor of Heaven and Yan Qingyi have merged into one and disappeared. Even if Qiyu really wants to lure the snake out of its hole, he might not succeed. Before that, the Empyrean Fairy is safe for the time being. Tang Zheng analyzed in his mind. Immediately, he couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. The Empyrean Fairy's life was temporarily saved. This was a blessing in disguise. I should find Yan Qingyi as soon as possible and discuss a countermeasure with her. Since Qiyu wants to lure the snake out of its hole, he will definitely reveal his whereabouts so that the Emperor of Heaven can find him. This way, we can save the Empyrean Fairy. Although the plan was good, what would he do if he really found Qiyu? He didn't have a good plan for the time being. His cultivation had broken through to the 9th level of the Divine Transformation Realm in one fell swoop and was only one step away from the Mahayana realm. However, when facing Qiyu, he had no hope of winning at all. From the situation described by the two beasts, Qiyu had an overwhelming advantage when facing Immerse and the Empyrean Fairy, the two first-level Mahayana realm experts. From this, it could be seen that Qiyu's cultivation was really too unfathomable. Seeing that he was silent and his expression kept changing, the two beasts looked at him worriedly and were at a loss for what to do. Facing such a predicament, they had no solution at all. Tang Zheng glanced at them and said, "Let's go home." "What about the Empyrean Fairy and the Four Symbols Venerable?" "I will find them, but not now," Tang Zheng said in a deep voice. The impact of this catastrophe was too great. He didn't know what would happen to his family. Chiyu had won an overwhelming victory and was in the limelight for a while. Moreover, his whereabouts were strange. Going to find him directly was tantamount to suicide. In addition, the most important thing was that he had to save Li Xiaotian. This was the most important thing. Since Chiyu thought that he was dead, with Chiyu's temper, he wouldn't bother to deal with his family in the capital. In his mind, those people couldn't even withstand a single blow and weren't worth mentioning. If he directly attacked them, it would be a disgrace to his status. Therefore, by pretending to be dead to the outside world, he could buy more time for himself and his family instead. This was because once Chiyu knew that he was not dead, he would definitely not let him go. He would probably directly kill his way to the capital and take his life. Although the inner demons had been resurrected, judging from Chiyu's performance, he was too strong. It was unknown whether the inner demons could resist him. It was not easy to fake death. He had to guard this secret to the death. Therefore, he looked at the two beasts seriously and said, "Next, I will give you a very important mission." "What mission?" They were shocked. They opened their eyes wide and stared at him like curious babies. "Spread the news of my death." "What, spread the news of your death?" They cried out in alarm at the same time. The thundercloud beast was dumbfounded and asked, "Aren't you still alive?" "I am not dead, but other people don't know." "Because Chiyu thinks that I am dead," Tang Zheng said meaningfully. The thundercloud beast's eyes were full of stars. The words dead and not dead echoed in its mind. It really couldn't understand the meaning behind Tang Zheng's words. The red moon beast was much smarter. After thinking for a while, it said, "You want people to think that you are dead?" Tang Zheng looked at it approvingly and said, "Yes, since Chiyu thinks that I am, then I will fulfill his wish. Using this opportunity, I have more important things to do." "What things?" Tang Zheng looked down at the person in his arms and said softly, "Revive her." "She is dead?" The red moon beast and the thundercloud beast were shocked. They stared at Li Xiaotian in shock. They thought that she was injured. They never thought that she was dead. "She is already dead. How do you revive her?" The red moon beast felt that it was unbelievable and couldn't help but ask. "There must be a way," Tang Zheng said stubbornly. Speaking of which, Tang Zheng never had anyone revive a dead person. Back then, after Yi Xuanji took the life-continuing pill, his lifespan increased by 10 years. This attracted the attention of the ghost realm. They sent ghost messengers to capture his soul and bring it to the ghost realm for questioning. Yi Xuanji was not dead. He just lost his soul and became a walking corpse. Tang Zheng could go to the ghost realm to find his soul and revive him. But Li Xiaotian was different. She was really dead. Her soul would enter the ghost realm. He wasn't sure if she could be revived successfully. But as long as there was a glimmer of hope, he wouldn't give up. The red moon beast looked at him in disbelief. Based on its knowledge, how could a dead person come back to life? This was beyond its imagination. This was the difference between the sky beyond heaven and this world. The sky beyond heaven was not a mother-child world, so it didn't have its own ghost realm. After a person died, their soul would disappear completely. There was no such thing as a soul entering the ghost realm and being reincarnated. In fact, the dragon clan's world was similar to the sky beyond heaven. After a dragon clan's death, the dragon's soul would not disappear, but it would not enter other worlds. The Great Thousand Worlds were different from each other and had their own characteristics. Your injuries are not serious. You have to go home on your own. I have to go home first and contact the relevant people. Are we not the only ones who know that you are still alive? Yes. Tang Zheng nodded his head. After experiencing the news of his death, Tang Zheng realized that if he were to hide the news from his closest family, it would be a very cruel thing to do. So, this time, he had to tell his loved ones that he was still alive. This was to prevent them from being too sad. He also believed that they would keep the secret for him. I will only tell a few of them. As for the rest, you will have to go back and tell them that I am dead, Tang Jing said. Understood. We will complete the mission. No one will know that you are still alive from us, the two beasts promised as they clapped their claws. Tang Jing nodded and shouted, "Somersault cloud." He jumped on the somersault cloud and disguised it. He hid in the somersault cloud and flew toward the capital city. The red moon beast and the thunder cloud beast were slower. They flew toward the capital city on their own. The somersault cloud was like an ordinary cloud that flew above the capital city. After Tang Jing landed, he immediately performed an illusion to hide his whereabouts. When he returned to the villa, he saw that it was a mess. It was obvious that there had been a battle. He was shocked. Could it be that the enemy had attacked? What about the others? He walked toward the villa quickly. When he saw that the formation outside the villa was not destroyed, he was relieved. The situation was not too bad. He quietly passed through the formation and walked into the villa. He realized that there were many more witch tribesmen on guard, and they looked like they were on tenterhooks. He did not let the witch clan members discover him. He quietly entered the villa and went to his grandfather's room first. The old man lived in a villa next to his. It was much quieter. He could sense that his grandfather was in the room. There were even witch clan members guarding the door to guard against enemies. Tang Jing nodded his head in relief. The witch clan elder understood his thoughts and protected his grandfather in all aspects. He did not alert the guards and quietly climbed in through the window. As soon as he stepped on the ground, he used his divine ability and isolated the room from the outside world. It was not that he was worried about the witch clan, but there were too many people and the chances of the news being leaked were too high. "Little Zheng, why are you back?" Tang Dahai jumped up from his chair and asked in surprise when he saw his grandson who had quietly appeared in the room. "Grandfather, did something happen at home? Are you okay?" Tang Jing asked. Tang Dahai sighed and said, "That's right. Not long after you left, someone came to attack the villa and was blocked by the array formation outside. Fortunately, the people of the Yen clan came, and everyone worked together to drive them away." Tang Jing frowned and asked, "Who is so bold to attack us?" "They are all a group of ordinary people, so we can't deal with them like how we deal with enemies. In short, it's very troublesome." Luckily, the sons disappeared and they were finally chased away. Ordinary people. Chapter 1350. Tang Zheng was flabbergasted that ordinary people would attack his home. He had no enmity with them, so why would they do such a thing? After listening to his grandfather's narration, he gradually understood that these ordinary people knew their identity as cultivators and blamed the disaster brought by the Golden Crow's soul on them. His intuition told him that there was something fishy going on. They disguised themselves well, so how could ordinary people know their identity? But he did not tell his grandfather and only comforted him for a while before reminding him that he would fake his death. Tang Dahai was very surprised as he did not understand why he would do such a thing. But he believed in him unconditionally, so he did not ask. "Little Zheng, don't worry. I will definitely not tell anyone." Tang Dahai held his grandson's hand and said solemnly. Tang Zheng left the room and went to another villa. Before he entered, he found that there were many people in the living room and the atmosphere was very serious. He did not show himself but relied on illusions to quietly come to the corner of the living room. Not only were his relatives in the living room, but the Yen family was also here. Everyone was discussing the identity of the attacker. They all thought that there was something fishy going on and that there was definitely someone behind this. However, they could not guess who the person behind this was. Could it be the chief? Yi Dingdang asked on a whim. "We can't rule out this possibility. I heard that he seemed to have appeared again and his position in the upper echelons has risen. Many people are biased towards him and some of his opponents have been suppressed by him." Yan Qishan was well informed and knew a lot of inside information. Tang Zheng was shocked. Could it be that he was the one behind this? He had to save Li Xiaotian first. The other party did not cause any big waves, so he could deal with them later. Heaven Monk remained silent the entire time. Regarding this so-called attack, he was more concerned about what happened at the peak of Heaven Mountain. The 9 golden crow's souls fell, proving that the operation was a success. He was very clear that this success required a huge price to pay and even sacrifice. After all, the Yellow Emperor's old subordinates must have made full preparations to condense the golden crow's soul. What was the specific situation? He felt as if there was a huge rock pressing down on his heart. Suddenly, he seemed to have sensed something and turned his head to look towards a corner of the hall, his gaze as sharp as a knife. That was exactly where Tang Zheng was hiding. He was shocked. Had he been seen through by Tian Chanzi? He didn't act rashly. He also stared at Tian Chanzi. Their eyes met, but Tian Chanzi couldn't see him. Fang Shishir noticed Tian Chanzi's strange expression and asked curiously, "Master, what's wrong?" Tian Chanzi retracted his gaze and shook his head. "Maybe I'm just too sensitive. I keep feeling like someone is spying on us." "Someone is spying?" The others were horrified and looked left and right, yet they didn't notice the figure of an outsider, and they couldn't help but feel bewildered. "Don't worry, maybe I'm thinking too much." Tian Chanzi didn't want everyone to be too nervous, so he shook his head and comforted them. "I wonder how the peak of Heaven Mountain is doing." Marshall sighed. "It must have succeeded. The spirit of the Golden Crow has disappeared," Lu Qingmei said. The others nodded in agreement. Everyone was gathered in the hall, so he couldn't show himself. Seeing the group of people frowning, he was worried that once the news of his death came back, it would cause a huge uproar. Just as he was thinking of a way to lure someone back to the room so that he could show himself, the door was pushed open with a bang. Almost all of the Witch Clan people were standing outside the door, their faces filled with indescribable pain. Seeing this, the elder asked in a deep voice, "What happened? Why are you so careless?" The Witch Clan people separated, and the Thunder Cloud Beast and the Scarlet Moon Beast walked in. Tang Zheng's heart tightened. These two fellows only came back a little later than him. It seemed like the news of his death would be announced soon. Everyone saw that other than the two beasts, there was no one else. They had a bad feeling in their hearts. "Thundercloud Beast, Scarlet Moon Beast, why are you the only ones back?" Fang Shishir asked impatiently. "That's right, where's Tang Zheng? Where's the Empyrean Fairy and Li Xiaotian?" The others looked at them nervously with burning eyes, afraid that they would hear the bad news that they were afraid of. The two beasts' eyes were filled with heartbreak and pain. According to their agreement with Tang Zheng, they sobbed and said, "Master, Tang Zheng is dead." "What?" Cries of surprise rose from all directions. Everyone thought that they had heard wrongly, but seeing each other's reactions, they knew that they had not heard wrongly. Everyone stood up and strode over to the two beasts. They asked, "Did you make a mistake? How could he die?" The two beasts had already discussed the wording and said in a pained voice, "It's true, he's dead." They spoke intermittently about everything that had happened at the peak of Heaven Mountain. They only changed the final ending and changed it to Tang Zheng's death. Everyone was dumbfounded. It was as if they had been immobilized and were rooted to the spot. Bang! Fang Shishir closed her eyes and fell to the ground with a loud bang. This time was different from the last time. Last time, it was someone else who sent the news. This time, the Thunder Cloud Beast and Scarlet Moon Beast witnessed it with their own eyes. How could it be fake? Moreover, everyone knew that the danger this time was far greater than the previous time. Naturally, they believed the two beasts' words. Yidingdang's boundless vitality seemed to have been sucked out of her body. Although she did not faint, it was as if she had become a different person. Marshall kept shaking her head, her eyes were wet. She muttered to herself, "How could he die, how could he die?" To Marshall, other than being her beloved, Tang Zheng had another identity. He was the son of her master and master's wife. If they knew that their son was dead, they would not be able to live. They had lost their son once, and this second blow was unbearable. Lu Qingmei seemed to have been possessed. Her body went soft and fell onto the sofa. Her knees hit a hard object and immediately bruised. She did not notice it at all. On the contrary, the one with the biggest reaction was Mu Hongyan. She had always been a strong businesswoman. She screamed and kept shaking her head, "No, he can't be dead." She had once lost her husband. It was an incomparably heavy blow, but she was strong enough to withstand it. Later on, she met Tang Zheng. Although it was a secret relationship, she had completely given her heart to him. Losing her beloved for the second time, even if she was incomparably strong, she could not bear it. She did not care to hide her relationship with Tang Zheng. "Tang Zheng, didn't you say that you would always be with me? You still have to accompany Nana, why did you leave? You are too cruel. How can you bear to let me lose my lover for the second time? What is the meaning of my life?" Mu Hongyan muttered to herself. If these words were said normally, it would definitely cause a huge uproar. After all, no one would have thought that she and Tang Zheng would have such a relationship. But at this moment, everyone was immersed in grief, and their shock was greatly reduced. They just turned to look at her and did not say anything. Wah, brother." Nana burst into tears. Tears fell from her tender cheeks like pearls. Her crying was heart-wrenching, as if it was tearing the hearts of others. Princess Anne's reaction was relatively calm. Although she also had feelings for Tang Zheng, after all, there was no real relationship. She just widened her eyes in horror. In just a second, the atmosphere in the big room completely changed. Heavy, painful, and depressed shrouded everyone's hearts. Yan Qishan and Yan Luyun looked at each other. They really could not believe this news. In their eyes, Tang Zheng was like a cockroach that could not be killed. They had never thought that he would die. Bang! With another muffled sound, the elder of the Wu tribe knelt on the ground. Tears flowed down his face. He cried out hysterically, "Master! Master!" The other Wu tribe members also knelt in the direction of Sky Mountain. Their tears were like a flood that broke the dam, covering everyone's cheeks. Tian Chanzi was extremely shocked. However, he was, after all, experienced and knowledgeable. He was calmer and did not lose his composure too much. However, he still could not digest this news. When Tang Zheng saw this scene, he was extremely anxious. He wished that he could immediately rush out and free them from the quagmire of pain. In the end, he controlled himself. A little impatience spoils great plans. However, he had to quickly tell the few people who were close to him that he was not dead and free them from their pain. He only hoped that everyone would return to their own rooms. "Where is Master's body?" the elder of the Wu tribe suddenly asked. It disappeared in the flames with Li Shaotian. The Thundercloud Beast and the Red Moon Beast already had a plan and answered directly. Dead without a complete corpse. This thought appeared in everyone's mind. They could not help but feel a chill in their hearts and become even more sorrowful. "Master!" The members of the Wu tribe were heartbroken and wailed. Lu Qingmei and Yi Dingdang finally could not take it anymore. They rolled their eyes and fell to the ground. This. Tang Zheng was shocked and almost rushed over again. "Quick, help them back to their rooms." Tian Chanzi saw that 3 of them had fainted. If this continued, the whole room would be filled. Everyone helped each other and finally helped them back to their rooms. The others returned to the hall and looked at each other. For a moment, it was as if they had lost their purpose in life and were at a loss. Tang Zheng quickly took action. He first entered Fang Shishi's room. She was the first person who fainted. He had to let her know the truth in time. "Shishi. Shishi." He gently shook Fang Shishi and called out softly. She finally woke up. "Tang Zheng, am I dead? I finally see you. Woo-woo." She suddenly threw herself into Tang Zheng's arms and cried loudly. Tang Zheng hugged her and kept patting her back, comforting her. "It's all my fault. I made you suffer and made you sad. Fang Shusher kept shaking her head. I want to die with you. From now on, we will never be separated. We will be reincarnated together. Tang Jing did not know whether to laugh or cry. What reincarnation? You are not dead and I am not dead. Not dead? Fang Shusher was shocked and stared at him in disbelief. Touch me. My body is still warm. Tang Jing held her hand and put it on his face. Chapter 1351. Fang Shusher leaned into Tang Zhang's arms and cried tears of joy. After listening to Tang Zhang's explanation of the whole story, her heart still couldn't calm down. You said the Empyrean fairy was kidnapped. Li Xiaotian sacrificed herself to save you. Tang Jing nodded heavily. Yes, if it wasn't for Li Xiaotian, you definitely wouldn't be able to see me. We used to target her, but I didn't expect that she would save you at the most critical moment. Fang Shusher said with shame. Tang Jing stroked her hair and said, so, I must save her. Bring her back from the dead. Do you want to go to the ghost realm? Fang Shusher's heartstrings trembled as she guessed Tang Jing's thoughts. Yes. Then. Fang Shusher hesitated for a moment, but in the end, she didn't say anything to dissuade him. Li Xiaotian sacrificed herself for him, so he should save her. The energy of the 9 souls of the Golden Crow fused into your body and detonated your yang energy. Has the yang energy completely calmed down now? Fang Shusher caressed his chest and asked worriedly. This question was very critical and almost hit the nail on the head. Tang Jing replied, the energy of the Golden Crow's soul is very powerful. Even I haven't completely absorbed it yet, but my cultivation has already increased to the 9th stage of the divine transformation realm. Once I safely refine and absorb this energy, my cultivation will definitely make a qualitative leap. In addition, the yang energy contained in the Golden Crow's soul isn't pure yang energy. It only detonated the pure yang energy in my body. In this case, the pure yang energy is extremely difficult to calm down. Qi Yu's judgment is very accurate. However, Li Xiaotian is a virgin, so her pure yin energy is abundant. Moreover, she exhausted all of her pure yin energy, so she barely managed to calm my pure yang energy. In the future, the pure yang energy will still erupt. At this point, Tang Jing couldn't help but feel gloomy. The age of 20 was a huge threshold for him. His pure yang energy would completely erupt. When that time came, it would definitely be more terrifying and dangerous than this time. Then, how would he be able to turn the situation around? He shook his head inwardly and temporarily discarded these distracting thoughts. When Fang Shusher heard him clearly explain the whole story, she sighed. Her original prejudice against Li Xiaotian disappeared like smoke in thin air. Don't worry, I will never leak the news that you are still alive. This time, we must win this tough battle and defeat Qi Yu. Otherwise, there will never be a day of peace. Fang Shusher clenched her fists and firmly supported Tang Jing's decision. Tang Jing felt relieved in his heart. Oh right, you and Mu Hongyan are also. Suddenly, Fang Shusher's eyes turned and stared straight at Tang Jing. Tang Jing lowered his head weakly and said, I'll go see the others first. We'll talk about other things later. With that, he hurriedly slipped out of the window. Fang Shusher angrily stomped her feet. She was helpless. When she saw his figure disappear, the corner of her mouth revealed a charming smile. Tang Jing went in and out of Lu Qingmei and Yidingdang's room and woke them up. He also explained the whole story and completely freed them from their pain. When he came out of the two's room, the sky was already bright. The Yen family had already left. They discussed for a long time but still couldn't come to a unified conclusion. But without a doubt, the news of Tang Jing's death would definitely cause a huge uproar. They had to find a way to calm this wave. Otherwise, they would be affected as much as possible. Seeing the others listlessly return to their own rooms, Tang Jing met with Mu Hongyan and Marshall. The two's endurance far surpassed the other girls. But after suffering such a blow, they were also in a daze. They were his women and also his closest people. If he hid it from them, the pain would be too great. She couldn't bear to see this scene, so she chose to meet them. Joy fell from the sky, and the two girls almost fainted from joy. Then, Tang Zheng met with the witch tribe elder. His loyalty to Tang Zheng could be seen by heaven and earth. He would definitely not leak any information about him. The witch tribe elder was like riding a roller coaster. When he saw Tang Zheng, his old heart almost jumped out of his chest. In the end, Tang Zheng hesitated for a while and decided to meet with Tian Chanzi. He was now the backbone of everyone. Many things depended on him. Without him, this family would not be able to support itself for the time being. Of course, he couldn't let him go. When Tang Zheng removed the illusion and stood in front of Tian Chanzi, he jumped back in shock and shouted, "You brat, you actually faked your death." He saw that Tang Zheng was a living person at a glance. Tang Zheng laughed and said, "If you didn't die, how could I die?" Tian Chanzi's thick eyebrows rose. He blew his beard and stared, "You brat, you can't wait for me to die." Tang Zheng shrugged his shoulders and spread out his hands, saying, "That's what you said." "I didn't say anything." The two of them joked with each other for a while, then returned to the main topic. Tang Zheng repeated his real experience. Tian Chanzi listened with wide eyes. After a long time, Tian Chanzi sighed and said, "Your plan is really good, but the price will not be small. Once the news of your death is announced, those wolves in the dark will definitely take action. They will not give up until they tear off a piece of meat from your body." Tang Zheng seemed to have already expected this. He said with a smile, "This requires you to make a move to intimidate the younger generation, so that they don't dare to have any improper thoughts." Tian Chanzi's strength was valiant. He indeed had this ability. Tian Chanzi rolled his eyes and said, "You brat, you're thinking about me again, aren't you?" Although he said this, he did not object. It was clear that he tacitly agreed with Tang Zheng's arrangement. In addition, you have a more important thing to do. Contact the Yan family and find Yan Qingyi together. I have a feeling that although Yan Qingyi left without saying goodbye and has not been heard from since, she is still a member of the Yan family. She will definitely pay attention to the Yan family's movements. If you work together with the Yan family, you might be able to find her. Tang Zheng urged. Yan Qingyi is very strange. The Emperor of Heaven merged into her body, but in the end disappeared. Do you think Yan Qingyi will save the Empyrean fairy? Tian Chanzi asked worriedly. The Emperor of Heaven is not as simple as you think. Although he has disappeared, once he finds out about his daughter, he will definitely not be indifferent. You just need to work together with the Yan family to find Yan Qingyi. But there is one thing, do not disclose my information to the Yan family for the time being. Tian Chanzi nodded thoughtfully, understood. After a pause, he asked, "How confident are you in going to the ghost realm to save her?" Tang Zheng shook his head and said, "I don't know, but I have to try." Tian Chanzi understood his thoughts and could not help but sigh, "All right, then I will wait for your early return." At this moment, the news of Tang Zheng's death had quietly spread to the outside world. For ordinary people, this name was very common. It was just a stranger, and not many people paid attention to it. But for 100 Change Star Lord and Lord Ji Wuxiang, this name was like thunder in their ears. Sometimes it was like a nightmare, making them unable to eat or sleep in peace. Hearing the news of his death, 100 Change Star Lord was so shocked that his eyeballs almost popped out. He exclaimed, "How could he die? How could he die?" Tang Zheng had repeatedly saved himself from danger in his hands. He subconsciously thought that Tang Zheng could not die, but this time he actually died. In particular, the details of the rumor were worth scrutinizing, which made people have to believe the authenticity of the news. Junko was dumbfounded and said with disappointment, "In this way, I can't kill him with my own hands?" 100 Change Star Lord hugged Junko's slender waist and said, "In short, he is dead. As for who killed him, it is not important. We just need to see the result." Junko turned her head and stared at 100 Change Star Lord absent-mindedly. In the end, she did not refute. The 100 Transformation Star Lord's eyes gradually lit up as he said in high spirits, Tang Zheng is already dead, so his group of henchmen will definitely be in chaos. This is the best time to kill them all and completely extinguish them. Junko immediately nodded. Yes, we must eliminate those bastards. They used to be so arrogant, but now that Tang Zheng is gone, let's see how they can continue to do so. 100 Change Star Lord smiled mysteriously. You will lead the team this time. We must give those henchmen a fatal blow. Yes. Junko's spirit was greatly roused. Her depressed mood was swept away and she couldn't wait to eliminate the henchmen in the villa. TSK. He actually sacrificed himself to shoot down the soul of the Golden Crow and saved millions of people. How selfless. 100 Change Star Lord shook his head with a mocking expression. So what if he is selfless? No one will remember his good deeds. On the contrary, a hat of shit will be placed on his head. Isn't there a rumor in the outside world that someone is inciting the masses to oppose the cultivators? The cultivators in the world will not take the blame. Tang Zheng is dead, and there is no evidence. Wouldn't it be more beneficial for our operation if we put the soul of the Golden Crow on his head? The 100 Transformation Star Sovereign said with a smile, but there was an eerie chill in his words. He had a lot of ability, but he ignored the soul of the Golden Crow and only cared about his own interests. Tang Zheng saved the world, but he put the hat of the Golden Crow's soul on Tang Zheng's head. This was to let the world poke at Tang Zheng's backbone. It was really too vicious. 100 Change Star Lord's vicious nature could be seen from this. As the saying goes, people flock together. Junko did not have the slightest opinion. Instead, her eyes lit up and praised 100 Change Star Lord for being wise and powerful. He actually thought of such a brilliant plan to kill with a borrowed knife. The dead cannot testify. This hat was fixed, and Tang Zheng did not even have the chance to resist. At least, it was so in the eyes of the two. Another thing worth paying attention to is that we must find out who is inciting the hostility between the ordinary people and the cultivators. 100 Change Star Lord also found that the attack of the ordinary people on Tang Zheng's villa was strange, so he was ready to investigate thoroughly. I guess it's the Azure Dragon Palace. They have always hated the cultivators. Of course, they will not miss this opportunity. Junko analyzed. Evidence. 100 Change Star Lord spread out his hand and said to Junko. Junko nodded seriously. I will find it. Chiyu is so powerful now, we should be more careful. Especially without the restriction of the Yellow Emperor tribe, Chiyu's ambition will quickly expand. I have seen this process with my own eyes, so I am very clear. We have hidden so well, he won't find out, right? Junko asked nervously. Chapter 1352. Mo Xia escaped in a sorry state. He did not know how far he had run, but after confirming that there were no pursuers behind him, he stopped and panted like an ox. He turned his head and looked in the direction of the heavenly mountain. The morning sun was slowly rising into the sky, and the morning light shone on his body, making him look like a golden light. However, his heart felt as if it had fallen into an endless abyss of darkness. The pain and loss in his eyes were indescribable. He had become a loner, and all of the Yellow Emperor's former subordinates had been annihilated. His eyes were red, but his tears did not fall. As powerful as he was, he would not shed tears. In his opinion, that was the sign of a coward. Chiyu, Tang Zheng, I will not let you off. He gritted his teeth, and the anger in his eyes seemed to be able to burn everything. Do you think you can completely defeat me like this? No, I will make a comeback. He thought of Yi Meiyu who was in the Mi ring and let her out. Yi Meiyu was extremely weak, and it took her a lot of effort to stabilize her body. She looked around and asked in a daze, we escaped. She had seen how powerful Chiyu was and was deeply shocked. The fear in her heart was like a stormy sea, almost completely engulfing her. We're safe. Mo Xia said in a deep voice. He felt a deep sense of disgust towards her reaction, especially the word escape. He was the #1 general under the Yellow Emperor, yet he had to escape. This was a great humiliation, and every time someone said it, it was like sprinkling salt on his wound. What should we do next? Yi Meiyu asked in a daze. I have a way. Mo Xia said. Not only was he escaping, he was also thinking of a countermeasure. In the end, he finally thought of a way. You have a way? Yi Meiyu was overjoyed, her round eyes opened wide. What way? Master's soul not only fused with the Golden Crow's soul, he also has a wisp of his soul that exists in this world. Mo Xia said. Yi Meiyu was shocked and really wanted to curse. If you had known earlier, why would you have spent so much effort to use the Golden Crow's soul to revive the Yellow Emperor? How could such a big commotion be hidden from others? Wasn't this courting death? Now that the entire army was annihilated, he remembered that there was another way. Wasn't this purely looking for trouble for himself? Yi Meiyu cursed in her heart, but she did not dare to say it out loud. It was true that Mo Xia was a defeated general, but to deal with her, it was still a piece of cake. Mo Xia swept a glance at Yi Meiyu and said, You're blaming me for not using this method earlier, right? No. Yi Meiyu denied. Mo Xia snorted coldly and said, You think I don't want to use it? But the price may not be as small as today. Yi Meiyu's expression suddenly changed as she looked at Mo Xia in fear. She thought to herself, if the price is even greater than this, what kind of price would it be? Now that the Yellow Emperor's former subordinates had been completely wiped out, the price was even greater than this. Could it be that Mo Xia was going to suffer as well? Yi Meiyu was shocked by her own thoughts and looked at him in shock. Mo Xia continued, Master still has a strand of remnant soul left in this world. This news isn't known to many, and most of the people who knew are no longer here. In the past, I didn't want to use this method because I had some misgivings. But now, it's different. We have no other choice but to use this method. Since it was a bad plan, it definitely wasn't a good one. Yi Meiyu's heart instantly jumped. She stared at him with sparkling eyes, looking forward to what the so-called bad plan was. This is a bad plan, but it's also the only way. I need to use your power. Mo Xia looked at her with a burning gaze and said in an earth-shattering manner. Use my power? Yi Meiyu pointed at herself in disbelief. Although she was very narcissistic and conceited, she still had some self-awareness. Even Mo Xia was so afraid, what could she do? Could she be cannon fodder? She became more and more nervous. Yes, you have inherited the power of the nightmare. The traceless dream divine ability is very powerful, but you have not cultivated it to the peak. I need you to use the traceless dream divine ability to deal with someone. Mo Xia said in a deep voice. Who? Inner demons. Yi Meiyu frowned and asked, Who are the inner demons? A very powerful person who is proficient in mental attacks. Mo Xia still had a lingering fear in his heart. Although tens of thousands of years had passed, when he thought of the inner demons, many images would still flash through his mind, causing his heart to palpitate. The inner demons were people that even the Yellow Emperor and Chiyu could not kill, so of course he would be afraid. Proficient in mental attacks? Yi Meiyu was surprised, she understood a little. No wonder she said that she needed to use her power, because she was also proficient in mental attacks. But there's one thing, no one can kill him. Mo Xia added. These words were like a heavy hammer that ruthlessly struck Yi Meiyu's heart. Yi Meiyu was dumbstruck, she was so shocked that she couldn't speak. Unkillable? Are you kidding me? Is there anyone in this world who can't be killed? I don't expect you to be able to hurt him. I just want to use your power to restrain him. Mo Xia said earnestly. Yi Meiyu was a little angry. Wasn't this purely because he didn't believe in her ability? As if seeing through her thoughts, Mo Xia said indifferently, When you see the inner demons, you will naturally understand how powerful he is. I don't believe that there is anyone in this world who is more powerful than me in mental attacks. Yi Meiyu was indignant. Even an expert like the Saint King was unable to completely nullify her attacks. She found it hard to imagine who else could do it. Then where are we going now? Yi Meiyu asked impatiently, as if she wanted to compete with the so-called inner demons. The inner demons were suppressed in a deep abyss back then. According to the current geography, they should be in the 10,000 huge mountains. Mo Xia speculated, when the inner demons were suppressed, a wisp of Master's remnant soul was left behind to suppress the inner demons at all times. Our goal is this wisp of remnant soul, and once we obtain the remnant soul, Master will have a chance to revive. After tens of thousands of years, there were too many variables. Mo Xia could only deduce a rough location. Once your injuries are healed, we will go to the 10,000 huge mountains. Mo Xia made a decision. Neither of them knew that the inner demons were no longer in the abyss and had already been successfully revived. The Yellow Emperor's remnant soul had once attached itself to Tian Chanzi's body, but after Tian Chanzi gained the upper hand, the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul disappeared without a trace. That's not too difficult. We just have to be on guard against the inner demons. Once we obtain this wisp of remnant soul, no one else will be our match. Yi Meiyu said casually. Mo Xia warned him, don't underestimate the inner demons. He's really not as simple as you think. Sai, you'll know when you see him. Our mission is to take Master's remnant soul away, and we can't release the inner demons. Otherwise, it will be difficult to suppress him again. Mo Xia did not want the inner demons to escape, that would be even more chaotic. They were already mortal enemies with Chiyu, so there was no way for them to join forces to suppress the inner demons again. This might give the inner demons an opportunity to take revenge for being suppressed all those years ago. Mo Xia would never allow this to happen. The two of them were ill-informed and did not know about Tang Zheng's death. However, the Azure Dragon Palace was well-informed and had already received the news. When Lord Ji Wuxiang heard the news, he was also extremely shocked. He ordered the Grandma Li to confirm it again and again, and in the end, the news of his death was true. Ji Wuxiang no longer had any doubts, and let out a long sigh. He is one of the most talented people I have ever met. Back then, when I was unable to communicate with the power of the stars, he was already able to do it. If not for him, heavenly chess would not have been able to succeed so quickly, and he played a part in it. I never thought that he would die just like that. Because the Li Palace was taken away by Tang Zheng, the Grandma Li hated Tang Zheng to the bone, and said with relief, it's a pity that he did not die in our hands, and Li Xiaotian, that traitor, also died this time. The past is like smoke, let it go, there is no need to be too attached to it. Ji Wuxiang said calmly. Yes. Grandma Li humbly accepted the advice. This time, they died in Chiyu's hands, which means that Chiyu's strength is already unfathomable. If we were to compete with him, Grandma Li did not finish her words, and looked at Ji Wuxiang with a burning gaze. Her meaning was self-evident. She was worried about whether Ji Wuxiang had any hope of winning against Chiyu. Ji Wuxiang smiled faintly and said, facts speak louder than words. From his attitude, it could be seen that he was very confident. Grandma Li was relieved, and did not forget to flatter, my lord has already achieved great success, and can communicate with the power of the stars to control heavenly chess. Chiyu is definitely not your opponent. Ji Wuxiang's expression did not change, and said lightly, I also heard a bit of news. This time Tang Zheng's residence was attacked, and there are rumors outside that they are trying to lead ordinary people and cultivators against each other. Ji Wuxiang's tone was very calm, as if he was talking about daily life, but Grandma Li's heart skipped a beat, and she nervously lowered her head, saying, I ordered my subordinates to do this. I did not deliberately hide it from my lord, but I felt that this matter was too small, and there was no need to disturb my lord's seclusion. During this period of time, Ji Wuxiang was in seclusion, and Grandma Li had to report all the major events outside the door. Although Ji Wuxiang did not respond, she still insisted on doing so. However, she did not report this matter to Ji Wuxiang. She was puzzled, the Lord had just come out of seclusion, so how did he know about this matter? Could it be that he had other sources of information, and someone else had tipped him off? She did not dare to ask this question, and her heart was in turmoil. Ji Wuxiang quietly looked at Grandma Li, who lowered her head even more, and her waist almost bent to the ground. Ji Wuxiang stretched out his hand and placed it on top of Grandma Li's head. Grandma Li trembled all over, as if she had been paralyzed, and did not move. From now on, you are not allowed to do this again. Yes, I won't dare. Grandma Li was relieved. With Ji Wuxiang saying so, this matter could be considered over. This matter is superfluous, and it will be easy to give the game away. In this world, there are other forces besides us, so why should we be the first to stand out? Let the cultivators fight among themselves, and then we will come out to clean up the mess. Isn't that better? Ji Wuxiang said patiently. Grandma Li finally raised her head, and said doubtfully, the Yellow Emperor's old subordinates were almost completely wiped out, who else can fight against Qi Yu? If we let him grow stronger, wouldn't it be very disadvantageous for us? Chapter 1353. He held Li Xiaotian's body in his arms, looking at her closed eyes. Tang Zheng's heart felt like it fell into an ice cave. He took a deep breath and stabilized his mind. It was midnight, the time of the day when the Yin Qi was the strongest. Whoosh! A gust of cold wind blew, making people's hair stand on end. Tang Zheng was in the middle of the cold wind, as if he did not see it. His eyes did not move away from Li Xiaotian's body. Suddenly, a dark door opened in front of him. 2 ghost messengers walked out. The ghost messengers looked around and said, "This human world seems different from yesterday. At midnight, the Yang Qi is so strong. If it was stronger, we wouldn't need to come to the human world to capture souls." Yes, I don't know what happened in the human world, such a big change happened. Unlike our ghost world, under the rule of Dizang of Goguryeo, we are thriving. One day, the human world will be left far behind by our ghost world. The ghost messengers proudly said. Tang Zheng heard these words, but was indifferent. He knew that the strong Yang Qi must be because the soul of the golden crow rose to the sky, so there was an extraordinary amount of Yang Qi descending to the earth. Even after a day, this Yang Qi did not dissipate. Let's capture this soul first, we still have to capture other souls. The ghost messengers took out the token, a burst of light bloomed from the token, Li Xiaotian's soul flew out from her body. A black light flashed in the ghost messenger's hand, and a chain flew out, directly toward Li Xiaotian's soul. Tang Zheng still did not raise his head, but it was as if there were eyes on the top of his head. He suddenly reached out and grabbed the chain. The ghost messengers were pulled by Tang Zheng's strength, staggered, and almost fell to the ground, pale with fright, shouted, "Who is it?" They thought it was a sneak attack by other experts, but when they looked, they found out that it was the man holding the body. The ghost messengers looked at each other. In the past, when capturing souls, they had never encountered any obstacles, but this time it was so strange. "He can see us," one of the ghost messengers exclaimed. "Of course he can see, otherwise how could he grab our soul lock?" Another ghost messengers unhappily said. "Then what should we do? Do you need me to teach you that?" The ghost messenger's face became serious as he glared at Tang Zheng and said, "We don't care who you are, but you dare to obstruct the ghost messenger's work. Do you know what this means?" Tang Zheng finally raised his head and looked at Li Xiaotian's soul floating in the air. Her soul and consciousness were still drifting and had yet to regain consciousness. "You want to capture her soul? Did you ask for my permission?" Tang Zheng asked with a cold expression. The ghost messengers looked at each other as if they had just heard the funniest joke in the world. They jokingly said, "This is a matter of course." Do you think you are the Dizang of Goguryeo? I know this is your duty. Otherwise, I wouldn't have wasted so much time talking to you. With me here, you have no way to capture her soul. I will go with her to the ghost realm and then see the Dizang of Goguryeo. Tang Zheng did not make things difficult for the ghost messengers and directly said. "What, you actually want to go with us to the ghost realm? You are seeking your own death, do you know that? The ghost messengers laughed. Tang Jing declined to comment. Another ghost messenger said, he must have been too sad and turned into an idiot. Wait a minute, how does he know about the Dizang of Goguryeo? Hearing him say it so smoothly, could it be that he knows the Dizang of Goguryeo? He is a living person. How could he know the Dizang of Goguryeo? He must have heard about the Dizang of Goguryeo from us and deliberately came to scare us. Yes, it must be like that. Now that there are more and more cultivators in the human world, we actually met this time. Everything has a beginning. In the future, there will be more situations like this. We might as well take him back and let the Dizang of Goguryeo make the decision. In the future, we can also do things according to the rules. Don't be caught in the middle. We are not human to begin with. Cough, cough. I don't often come to the human world. I learned it from them. I'm used to it. Tang Zheng ignored the ghost messengers and directly said, let's go. Then we will capture your soul. But I warn you, once your soul goes to the ghost realm, you will die. Don't even think about returning to the human world. The ghost messengers reminded. Tang Zheng did not say a word. He put the body in his arms back into Sumer world. With a wave of his hand, Li Xiaotian's soul flew down. He softly said, Li Xiaotian, let's go to the ghost realm together. With that, he strode into the ghost gate. Li Xiaotian seemed to be attracted by a huge force. His feet did not touch the ground as he lightly flew into the ghost gate. The two ghost messengers stood in place, staring at each other in shock. They exclaimed, he actually dared to use his body to pass through the ghost gate to the ghost realm. The human body was afraid of the ghost realm's Yin Qi. Once the Yin Qi was produced, it would be beyond redemption and death was certain. Tang Zheng's action completely subverted the ghost messenger's understanding. He is willing to die. Why are we worried about him? Hurry up and go in. Don't let him go too far. The ghost messengers hurriedly jumped into the ghost gate. The scene between heaven and earth changed dramatically. The sky was even lower, gloomy and gloomy. The cold wind blew, making people shudder. Tang Zheng stood in place. Li Xiaotian's soul finally stepped on the ground. When he came to the ghost realm, his soul seemed to have returned home. It was almost the same as a human in the human world. Li Xiaotian's confused eyes lit up little by little. His chaotic brain also became clear. After a person died, the memory of his life would still exist. After drinking Meng Po's soup, he would forget the memory of his life and become a simple ghost. Tang Zheng, is that you? Li Xiaotian screamed in shock. Her eyes were full of disbelief. Tang Zheng showed a bitter smile, took her hand and said, it's me. When the soul was in the human world, it was illusory and had no physical body. Once the soul came to the ghost realm, it would become a physical body. Therefore, Tang Zheng held Li Xiaotian's hand. Didn't I die? Li Xiaotian asked doubtfully, how can I meet you? Could it be that you? Li Xiaotian covered her mouth with her hand. Her seductive appearance was involuntarily revealed. It was very moving. Even after her death, her every frown, every smile, and every gesture exuded boundless charm. I'm not dead. I want to save you and bring you back to life. Tang Zheng directly stated his purpose. He did not hide anything. Save me? If I'm dead, you can still save me? This was hard for Li Xiaotian to imagine. Tang Zheng nodded heavily. Saving a dead person was not only to bring the soul back to the body. In that way, he could imprison Li Xiaotian's soul and not let her leave his body without going to the ghost realm. He had to go to the ghost realm and seek help from the Dizang of Goguryeo. Only then could he be reborn. As for Qi Yu and the inner demons, these powerhouses from tens of thousands of years ago, their souls had been cultivated to a very powerful state. As long as their souls were not destroyed, they would always have a way to be reborn. Therefore, when they killed the enemy, they would always destroy the enemy's soul. Only then could they be considered to have completely killed the enemy. When the Saint Monarch died in battle, Immerse did the same. When the Ganzhou sword pierced his body and ended his life, his soul was also completely destroyed, and his body and soul were completely destroyed. This was also why there were very few cultivators' souls in the ghost realm. The cultivator's soul was too powerful. Once they came to the ghost realm, they would often cause chaos in the ghost realm. The ghost realm was happy to see this and did not like these troublemakers. The two ghost messengers also heard Tang Zhang's words. They couldn't help but laugh. Arrogant words, the dead can't be brought back to life. Haven't you heard of this sentence? You actually want to bring the dead back to life. You're going against the heavens. It won't work at all. We've been here for so many years, but we've never seen such a thing. Yes, this is a fool's dream. TSK, today's mission is really interesting. We'd like to see how he can bring people back to life. Let's go. Don't just talk about old times. There will be plenty of opportunities in the future. The ghost messengers urged. Li Xiaotian's face was very ugly. She looked at Tang Zheng with worry and said, "Isn't this very difficult? How about we just forget about it?" Tang Zheng said with an unquestionable tone, "Don't listen to the ghost messenger's nonsense. What kind of difficulty is there? Even if there is a difficulty, I will overcome it. I must save you." Li Xiaotian's lips curled into a smile. She looked at him and said, "Why are you so good to me? You're even better to me. What I do for you is not even 1/10,000th of what you do for me. You gave your life to me. No matter what I do, I will never be able to make it up to you." Tang Zheng said emotionally. "No." Li Xiaotian shook her head. Her finger covered Tang Zheng's mouth. "What I do for you is of my own accord. I don't need you to make it up to me. I know your heart." Tang Zheng nodded. If at this time he still didn't understand her feelings, then he would be a complete idiot. He couldn't help but grab her hand. Li Xiaotian's eyes were full of shyness, but she didn't lower her head. She looked at him affectionately. Their eyes met. Tang Zheng's heart was also filled with tenderness. He couldn't help but bend down and lightly touch her lips. It was very cold. Tang Zheng's heart was burning hot. He hugged her waist. Li Xiaotian lightly trembled. She straightened her body, then immediately softened and snuggled into his embrace. She had fantasized about this scene countless times. Her dream became reality, but it was in the ghost realm. But her heart was still incomparably happy, sweet and satisfied. Now even if my soul scatters, I am perfectly satisfied. I have no regrets. Li Xiaotian said emotionally. Don't say such discouraging words. You'll be fine. Tang Zheng advised. Looking at the two of them being lovey-dovey, the ghost envoys felt a sense of unreality. Was this the ghost realm? Why weren't these two afraid at all? They treated this place like their own home. This is the ghost realm, not your human world. The ghost envoys urged. Tang Zheng rolled his eyes. He stared at the two unromantic guys. Holding Li Xiaotian's hand, he walked away with large strides. Hey, wait a minute. The two ghost envoys quickly chased after them. Their cultivation was not as good as Tang Zheng's. They used all their strength to barely keep up with Tang Zheng's pace. Chapter 1354. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Let bygones be bygones. Forget about your past life. A voice that seemed to have magic poured into their ears. Tang Zheng's head trembled. This voice has a bewitching power. Whose voice is it? This is the ghost realm. Even if he knows the Dizang of Goguryeo, he can't let his guard down. There is a saying that it is easy to see the king of hell, but difficult to deal with the little ghosts. The Dizang of Goguryeo is too high-end, those below may not buy it. So, unless there is no other choice, he will not resort to violence. After all, because of the relationship with the Dizang of Goguryeo, he can't casually make a scene like before. It's just that, he has heard this voice before, so he is quite surprised. There is a fog in front, hazy, can't see the road ahead. The ghost messenger seems to have long been used to it, and did not explain. Tang Jing simply did not ask, and just followed the other party's footsteps. Li Xiaotian grabbed Tang Zheng's hand, whispered, "This ghost realm is so strange, it is very different from the human world." Tang Zheng softly said, "It is two different worlds, of course there are differences." "What is that voice?" Li Xiaotian blankly asked. "There seems to be a kind of magic, deeply attracting me." Tang Zheng also felt surprised, but not as deep as her, said, "Don't think too much, I am here." Li Xiaotian held his arm, glued to him. She felt that this ghost realm does not seem to be so bad, at least with his company. No matter how bad the environment is, she does not mind. Walking into the fog, they can't see the surroundings clearly. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Let bygones be bygones. Forget about your past life. Suddenly, the voice sounded again. Li Xiaotian subconsciously quickened her pace. Tang Zheng found something strange, quickly pulled her hand, asked, "What's wrong?" Li Xiaotian said, "That voice is getting more and more attractive to me." Tang Zheng immediately realized that things were not as simple as he thought. He was on full alert. The ghost messenger noticed the difference between the two of them and couldn't help but reveal an unfathomable smile. Creak, creak. The sound of footsteps suddenly changed. Tang Zheng was shocked and quickly looked down. He didn't know when, but the floor under his feet had turned into wood. He looked around and saw that there was a thick fog all around. He subconsciously took a step to the left, but his foot missed. He quickly retracted it. "We're on the bridge?" Tang Zheng asked in a deep voice. The ghost messenger's smile became even more intense as he laughed out loud. "Of course we are on the bridge. If you step out, you will be consigned to eternal damnation. Beyond redemption? Of course, do you know what kind of place this is?" The ghost messenger changed from his usual self and said proudly, as if he wanted to give this outsider a good lesson. "No matter where it is, it's all the same to me," Tang Zheng said fearlessly. The ghost messenger curled his lips and jokingly said, "Shameless boasting. Coming to the Bridge of Helplessness, you still dare to be so arrogant." Bridge of Helplessness? Tang Zheng was surprised. This name was not unfamiliar to him. It appeared in many folklore. The Bridge of Helplessness was accompanied by Mengpo's soup. Could there really be a Mengpo holding a bowl of soup on this bridge? He immediately remembered the voice just now. Could it be Mengpo's voice? That's why it has a bewitching effect on souls. Li Xiaotian tightly grabbed Tang Zheng's arm and worriedly said, "I don't want to drink Mengpo's soup. I don't want to forget the things of this life. I don't want to forget you." "This life? Hee, that's already the previous life. If you don't forget, how can you start a new life?" The previous voice sounded again. An old woman with a stooped body walked out from the fog in front of them. "Mengpa!" Tang Zheng exclaimed. There really was a Mengpa. Why didn't he meet her before in the ghost realm? He didn't know that when he came to the ghost realm before, he never took the normal road. This road was specially made for ghost envoys to lead new souls. This Bridge of Helplessness was the only way. You really do know the older students, hee. Meng Po's face was full of wrinkles. She supported herself with a walking stick, but her laughter gave people a creepy feeling. You're still a living person. You actually came here. Strange. Meng Po's laughter came to an abrupt end. Her pair of small eyes were half open and half closed, staring straight at Tang Zheng. The two ghost envoys remembered that after walking such a long distance, this person didn't have the slightest discomfort. This was not normal. There was actually a living person who didn't fear the erosion of Yin Qi. Yes, what's the matter with you? It's been so long and everything is still normal. The ghost envoys stared at Tang Zheng and asked. Tang Zheng turned a deaf ear and didn't answer this question. Meng Po looked at the ghost envoys and meaningfully said, "You two actually brought a living person. I don't know if you're lucky or unlucky." Meng Po, this kid insisted on coming. "He's a cultivator. We can't do anything about it." The ghost envoys quickly explained. Meng Po's level seemed to be higher than them. Seeing the ghost envoy's expression that was uglier than crying, she didn't move at all. She faintly said, "So what if he's a cultivator? In the ghost realm, he can't jump around." The ghost envoys nodded like they were pounding garlic. Meng Po's words are true. Since you've entered the ghost realm, you must drink my bowl of Meng Po's soup. Only by forgetting your past life can you cross this bridge of helplessness and enter the heart of my ghost realm. Meng Po reached out and a bowl of black soup appeared in her hand. Wow, it smells so good. Li Xiaotian couldn't help but cry out. He took a deep breath and had a very intoxicated expression. Tang Zheng didn't smell anything. Instead, he looked at the pitch-black liquid and felt disgusted. "No one wants to drink your Meng Po's soup." Tang Zheng refused. Meng Po looked at Tang Zheng with a smile. Her long and narrow eyes revealed a faint light. She said, "You're a living person so you don't need to drink it for the time being. But she's a living soul so she must drink this bowl of Meng Po's soup." "She won't drink it." Tang Zheng glanced at Li Xiaotian who seemed to be intoxicated. He quickly pulled her into his arms, as if he was afraid that she couldn't resist the temptation and drank Meng Po's soup. Meng Po's smile filled her cheeks, but it gave people a gloomy and terrifying feeling. "If you don't drink, you can't cross this bridge of helplessness." "What if I insist on crossing?" "Unless you cross from outside the bridge, I naturally won't stop you." Meng Po's eyes were unfathomable. Tang Zheng subconsciously looked outside the bridge. In the thick fog, he couldn't see clearly at all. It was dead silent, giving people an ominous feeling. Outside the bridge is the river Styx. No one can cross the river Styx. If you jump, only death awaits. Ghost Messenger laughed. Meng Po's eyes flashed with a trace of pride. Of course, she was more clear about all of this, so she deliberately made things difficult for Tang Zheng. River Styx. Tang Zheng's thick eyebrows raised. He remembered. He once fell into the river Styx and quickly sank. The river Styx's water can also devour souls. Whether it's a ghost or a living soul, it's difficult to resist the power of the river Styx's water. If it weren't for the four symbols venerable not being afraid of the river Styx's water, Tang Zheng would have been buried in the river Styx long ago. Of course, he wouldn't take it lightly. The bridge of helplessness was the bridge to cross the river Styx. Apart from the bridge of helplessness, there was nothing else that could cross the river Styx. Every living soul that came to the ghost realm must cross the bridge of helplessness. Meng Po kept looking at Tang Zheng. Seeing his reaction, she asked in surprise, "You actually know about the river Styx? Strange, you're a living person, but you seem to know a lot about the ghost realm." Tang Zheng ignored her surprise and asked in a deep voice, "What if I have to cross the bridge of helplessness?" Meng Po's big hand moved forward. Meng Po's soup was almost in front of Li Xiaotian, deeply attracting her. "Then let her drink my bowl of Meng Po's soup." "No." Tang Zheng shook his head, resolute and decisive. "Then there's no other way. I know the Dizang of Goguryeo. This time, I'm here to ask him for help." Tang Zheng didn't want to be entangled with these little ghosts. He directly explained his purpose of coming, and even pointed out the Dizang of Goguryeo, hoping that the other party wouldn't make things difficult for him. Meng Po wasn't frightened by the name of the Dizang of Goguryeo. She laughed. "It seems that you really know a lot about the ghost realm. You even know the name of the new master of the ghost realm." The ghost messenger looked at Tang Zheng with ridicule and said, "Meng Po, you don't know how arrogant he is. He actually wants to find the Dizang of Goguryeo to resurrect this woman." Meng Po was stunned for a moment. She turned pale with fright and said, "Really? That's really not an ordinary arrogance. How can we let such a daring person go and disturb the Dizang of Goguryeo? He's so busy every day. How can he have the time to deal with such an arrogant lunatic? Yes, that's reasonable. So we'll have to trouble Mengpa to make a move. The ghost messenger's face was thick, and his smile was uglier than crying. Tang Zheng sighed helplessly. He brought out the Dizang of Goguryeo, this big signboard, but it didn't have any effect. This was something he never thought would happen. Mengpo raised her head. Her stooped body also straightened. She glared at Tang Zheng and said, "This bridge of helplessness is controlled by me, Mengpa. If you want to go over, then you'll have to step over my body." Li Xiaotian's heart tightened. He grabbed onto Tang Zheng and asked, "What do we do?" Her cultivation was not low when she was alive. She had a divine weapon. But now she was only a ghost. She did not have any strength. She could not help Tang Zheng, so her heart was nervous. Tang Zheng patted her hand to comfort her and said, "Don't worry. I'll take care of everything." Holding Li Xiaotian's hand, he suddenly took a step forward and approached Mengpa. "This is your request," he said aggressively. "Then I can only fulfill your wish," Mengpa said. Mengpa was stunned for a moment. She seemed to think that this was a big joke. After a while, she came back to her senses and said, "Then this bridge of helplessness will have one more soul." Obviously, Mengpo wanted to kick Tang Zheng off the bridge of helplessness and bury him in the river Styx. Tang Zheng coldly snorted. He took large strides and directly crashed into Mengpo's body. Mengpa did not retreat. The walking stick in her hand flew up and turned into a black light. In an instant, it turned into a huge sinister ghost head. It bit towards Tang Zheng's neck. Chapter 1355. The ferocious ghost head directly exploded, turning into wisps of yin qi. It came quickly, but it also disappeared quickly. With this move, it was obvious who was superior. Mengpo was stunned for a moment. The opponent's strength far exceeded her expectations. She did not stop there. With a scream, the dissipated yin qi once again gathered, turning into 9 ghost heads, front, back, left, and right, attacking Tang Zheng together. Tang Zheng's expression did not change. He did not even let go of Li Xiaotian's hand. His big hand fearlessly grabbed at the ghost head. Boom! A ball of flame rose from his palm. When it caught the ghost head, it immediately let out a sharp scream. The true fire was extremely effective against these ghost heads. Mengpo's expression finally changed. She staggered back. Her big hand grabbed behind her, pulling off the cloak on her body. The cloak flew out, covering the true fire. The true fire was extinguished. Tang Zheng's feet flashed. He approached Mengpa, his finger pressed against her hazy eyebrows. As long as he breathed in and out, Mengpo would undoubtedly die. Mengpa seemed to have been immobilized. She immediately became motionless, looking at Tang Zheng in horror. "You can't stop us," Tang Zheng calmly said. The other 2 ghost messengers also retreated in panic. Only now did they realize that the guy they didn't put in their eyes was actually so powerful. Even Mengpa wasn't his opponent, so they were just sending food to him. This battle from beginning to end only took a few dozen seconds, deeply shocking Mengpa. "Who exactly are you?" Mengpa asked, still in shock. "I said I was looking for the Dizang of Goguryeo. The Dizang of Goguryeo is not here." Mengpa hesitated for a moment and said. Tang Zheng furrowed his brows. Seeing this, the 2 ghost messengers nodded like they were pounding garlic and said, "Yes, the Dizang of Goguryeo is not here. This is King Songjiang's territory." King Songjiang? Tang Zheng faltered slightly upon hearing this. He was no stranger to this name. After all, he was the King Yanluo of the First Court, a man who had once stood toe-to-toe with the King Yanluo of Hell. Moreover, in the 18 levels of Hell, King Songjiang had personally witnessed how Tang Zheng and the Dizang of Goguryeo worked together to eliminate the Hell King and suppress Azura. Since it was an old acquaintance, things would be even easier. "Then take me to see Song Jiangwang." Tang Zheng changed his mind. There was no point in tangling with these brats. He went straight to the point and looked for Song Jiangwang. You know our king Song Jiang too? Mengpe and the ghost messenger were dumbfounded. When this kid first said that he knew the Dizang of Goguryeo, they all snorted disdainfully, thinking that he was just using the tiger's skin as a banner. After all, the Dizang of Goguryeo was too far out of their reach. They were Song Jiangwang's subordinates, so their reverence for Song Jiangwang was more direct and stronger. Tang Zheng nodded. Of course I know him. I won't make things difficult for you. Take me to see King Song Jiangwang and everything will naturally become clear. Mengpe and the ghost messenger looked at each other in dismay. This was a dragon crossing the river. With their strength, they could only bully a living soul. As for Tang Zheng, they didn't have the slightest bit of deterrence. If they angered him and threw them into the underworld river, then their souls would scatter and they wouldn't even have a chance to redress their grievances. All right. Mengpe compromised. She clearly understood the principle of a wise man submits to circumstances. Tang Zheng nodded solemnly. This time, he had finally scared these brats. Otherwise, it would have been a waste of time. They walked across the bridge of helplessness together. The thick fog gradually dissipated, and the silhouette of a majestic city appeared in the distance. What is that? Li Xiaotian pointed and asked. That is Song Jiangwang City. Mengpe said. That is King Song Jiangwang City. This entire region is under his jurisdiction. Tang Zheng added. This place seems like ancient times. There's actually such a city. Li Xiaotian exclaimed. The ghost realm and the ancient world of the human world are not much different. Tang Zheng said, look over there. Those are ghost citizens. They are just like the ordinary people of our human world. Li Xiaotian opened his eyes wide and spun around, admiring the scenery and local customs of this different world. After a person dies, their soul enters the ghost realm. A portion of them will reincarnate, while a portion will become these ghost citizens and settle down in the ghost realm. Tang Zheng explained with familiarity. Mengpe and the ghost messenger were dumbfounded. Was this guy really a living person? How could he know the ghost realm like the back of his hand? They couldn't help but believe Tang Zheng's words. Maybe he really did know the big shots of the ghost realm. Immediately, they felt apprehensive. If he said a few bad words about them in front of King Song Jiangwang, then they would be in trouble. Don't look at how they were showing off just now. In reality, their positions weren't high. They were equivalent to the basic civil servants of the human world, or even crueler. A word from their superior could not only determine their future, but also their life and death. Their hearts were in a mess. Mengpe finally mustered up her courage and carefully said, that was a misunderstanding. We didn't know your identity, so it ended up like this. The two ghost messengers put on a smile that was uglier than crying. They begged, yes, we have eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai. You are a great person and don't hold a grudge against us. Please let us go. Looking at their change from arrogance to deference, Li Xiaotian couldn't help but laugh. He looked at Tang Zheng with a burning gaze. Not only was he unhindered in the human world, countless people were in awe of him. In the ghost realm, he wasn't the least bit inferior. Mengpe and the ghost messengers were afraid of him. Tang Zheng didn't smile and coldly said, I will naturally tell the truth. Aya, that won't do. You are a great person and don't hold a grudge against us. Please don't lower yourself to our level. The two ghost messengers fell to their knees in front of Tang Zheng and cried. Mengpe was also terrified to the extreme. She was trembling with fear and her face was like a bitter gourd. Tang Zheng didn't mean to make things difficult for them. Seeing that he had scared them, this was considered a small punishment. He said, seeing that you are apologizing so sincerely, I will not bicker with you. Remember, be more polite to the living spirits in the future. Yes, yes. They nodded as if they had been pardoned. Along the way, many ghost citizens and ghost messengers on patrol looked at this group of people curiously. Especially since Tang Zhang was a living person, they could all see. There were even ghost messengers who took the initiative to ask, looking at Tang Zhang with unkind eyes. But with Meng Po's negotiation, these ghost messengers didn't interfere. They could only watch as they walked into Songjiang City. Li Xiaotian felt that she had really broadened her horizons, especially when she looked at the majestic city. In her impression, no matter which dynasty's city wall it was, it could not be compared to this. This was really too majestic. Songjiang City was completely different from the desolation outside the city. It was like two different worlds. It was very lively, ghost citizens were weaving together, and the noise rose and fell one after another. This was a replica of ancient times. There were shops, taverns, inns, and everything. Li Xiaotian was dazzled by the sight. There were even many special snacks, such as fried ghosts. One after another, ferocious ghosts were placed in a pot of oil. They were fried with crackling sounds, and their screams were even more chilling. Li Xiaotian, on the other hand, watched with relish and was not the slightest bit afraid. These ghosts were ghosts who had committed many crimes. After their souls were scattered, they became ghosts. They were fried by the vendors and then sold to the ghost citizens. It was said that they were very delicious and could increase one's strength. They were worth a lot. In the past, Tang Zheng came and went quickly, so he didn't have the leisure to care about these things. This time, it was an eye-opener. However, while fried ghosts were beneficial to the ghost citizens, they were harmful to Tang Zheng, a living person. So he and Li Xiaotian didn't try it. Following the smooth path that extended from the entrance of the city, they finally arrived in front of a magnificent palace. The ghost general on duty stopped them. Meng Po's face didn't seem to be very useful. After all, this palace was the core area, and Song Jiangwang lived inside. The ghost general didn't dare to be careless. Seeing that they were stopped again and again, Tang Zheng was furious. Were these guys that difficult to meet? Meng Po tried her best to persuade them, but the ghost general refused to let them pass. Meng Po looked resentfully at Tang Zheng, not knowing what to do next. Tang Zheng said in a low voice, "No need to trouble you guys. I'll let Song Jiangwang come out." After saying this, he soared into the air and floated in midair. He looked down at the majestic palace and took a deep breath before shouting, "Song Jiangwang." There were many voices. Not only could it be heard in the palace, but it could also be heard in every corner of the city. This sound could be described as earth-shattering. Immediately, countless figures soared into the air, killing intent surging as they charged at Tang Zheng. In Song Jiangwang City, to shout out Song Jiangwang's name without any fear was a great disrespect. No one had ever dared to do this before. "Who is it? You dare to make a ruckus here?" A group of fiendish ghost generals and ghost kings surrounded Tang Zheng, their expressions unkind. Tang Zheng wasn't afraid at all. He casually looked at them and said, "Call Song Jiangwang out to see me. He's been hiding in the palace all day. Is it that hard to see him?" A ghost king stepped forward and shouted, "How bold! Our king's status is so high. Is he someone you can meet just because you want to?" "That's right. Where did you come from? You dare to speak such arrogant words. Are you looking to die? That's not right. He's a living person. He doesn't belong to our ghost realm." Suddenly, a ghost king looked at Tang Zheng in disbelief and cried out in alarm. The others seemed to have awoken from a dream. They all stared at Tang Zheng and said, "How could he be a human? A living person shouting at Song Jiangwang in their territory." This wasn't as simple as a provocation. Meng Po's legs went soft in fright and she almost fell to the ground. This time it was over. This person dared to be so arrogant. This was a great disrespect to Song Jiangwang. This kind of provocation was a capital offense. Then wouldn't she be an accomplice if she brought him here? She regretted it. She shouldn't have believed this person's words and brought them to Song Jiangwang's palace. Meng Po's face was ashen. She turned her head to look at Li Xiaotian. She discovered that the corners of her mouth were curled up into a smile. It was as if she didn't care about this at all. Were these two fellows stupid and bold? Were they heartless? They didn't even know that a disaster was imminent. Meng Po wished she could immediately sneak out. She turned her gaze and discovered that the two ghost envoys that were with her had already slipped away, pulling away from her. Chapter 1356. There were so many ghost generals and ghost kings, yet Tang Jing didn't even put them in his eyes. Naturally, everyone was enraged. Meng Pe even had thoughts of dying. This guy was really not afraid of death. She was really going to die because of him. There was no hope for her to live anymore. Bang! Meng Po's body went limp, and she fell to the ground softly. Her face was ashen, and her heart was dead. Just as the ghost generals were about to attack and completely cut Tang Jing into pieces, a figure slowly rose from the palace and shouted, "Stop!" The ghost generals were shocked. They all looked up at the sky with reverence. At the same time, they cheered in their hearts. Zhang's gaze was like that of a dead person. He was dead for sure. Tang Jing was also that figure. The corners of his mouth curled up, and he said loudly, "Song Jiangwang, you've finally shown yourself." There was no trace of reverence in his voice. The others thought that Tang Jing was dead for sure. After seeing Song Jiangwang, he didn't lower his head and even dared to call him by his name. Meng Po was so scared that she crawled on the ground. She raised her eyelids and glanced at Song Jiangwang. Then, she quickly lowered her head and trembled all over. On the bridge of helplessness, she could control the souls of the living, but in front of Song Jiangwang, she didn't even dare to think of resisting. Song Jiangwang was the master of this huge city. He could control the life and death of anyone. Not to mention a mere Meng Po, the other ghost kings and ghost generals didn't dare to act rashly. Yet this person dared to provoke him. If that wasn't courting death, then what was? Meng Po had already lost the ability to think. Her mind was blank, and her eyes were dull. Everyone looked at Song Jiangwang with burning eyes. They didn't know how he would react. Tang Jing also had a smile that wasn't a smile. Song Jiangwang was stunned at first. Then, he revealed a look of shock. He heard someone call him by his name in the palace. Of course, he was very angry, but he still felt that this voice was familiar. Song Jiangwang had always been cautious. Since he felt that this voice was familiar, and the other party was so unbridled, he rose to the sky. When he finally saw Tang Jing's appearance, many memories flooded into his mind like a tidal wave. He immediately recalled the scenes in the 18 levels of hell. The Lord of the Underworld, the Shura, and the Dizang of Goguryeo had all appeared out of nowhere. After going through a series of battles, even with Song Jiangwang's strength, he could not do much. But there was one living person who was an exception. That was Tang Jing. Not only had he fused with the King of Hell's Yama seal, but he had also received the Ksitigarbha Sutra from Dizang of Goguryeo. Most importantly, he had actually taken the Azura with him. There was no doubt that this series of events had deeply shocked Song Jiangwang, especially the relationship between Tang Jing and Dizang of Goguryeo, which made him very jealous. If he had such a good relationship with Dizang of Goguryeo, then King Yama would definitely be suppressed by him. In addition, it was also Tang Jing who had fought for the promotion of the human realm to a great world. In short, although Tang Jing was a living person, his influence in the world of spirits and souls was so great that no one could compare to him. Song Jiangwang was extremely smart. Of course, he knew very well that this person must not be provoked. He never thought that he would actually come to his territory without provoking him. His expression became unnatural. He said resentfully, "So it's you." The others were shocked. What? Song Jiangwang actually knew him? Could it be that he was not lying? Many people were confused and wondered about his status. Tang Zheng looked at Song Jianguang with a smile that was not a smile and said, Song Jianguang, I trust you have been well since we last met. It is not easy to see you in the world of spirits and souls. Song Jianguang smiled and said, What are you saying? If you want to see me, just say the word. Why go through so much trouble? This is all because the people below have eyes but do not recognize Mount Tai. What? Did he hear wrongly? Song Jianguang actually spoke to him in such a tone. Was this a dream? Song Jianguang was the master of this city. Everyone had to listen to his orders. No one dared to disobey him. He was also rarely so amiable to others, especially under such circumstances. Shouldn't he be furious and then teach him a lesson? Everyone had a puzzled look on their faces. They were a little confused about the current situation. Hee, if you didn't come out, these people would have cut me into pieces. Tang Zheng said with a teasing smile. How can they be your opponent? Song Jianguang said. Although he was not clear about Tang Zheng's current strength, no matter what his cultivation was, it would be troublesome to injure him. Dizang of Goguryeo would definitely not agree. How can a noble guest be refused at the door? Come into the palace with me. Song Jianguang was very enthusiastic, as if he was an old friend who had not seen each other for many years. He affectionately pulled Tang Zheng and wanted to fly into the palace. Tang Zheng refused, saying, I still have friends. He turned around and flew towards the entrance of the palace. Song Jianguang suspiciously chased after him and landed at the entrance of the palace. The other ghost generals all knelt at his feet. Song Jianguang acted as if he did not see anything and was curious about Di Zheng's every move. Suddenly, Li Xiaotian saw Tang Zheng walk to her side and hold her hand. What does a living soul have to do with him? Tang Zheng said. Noble guest? This person was actually a noble guest and not an enemy. When did Song Jianguang have a noble guest in the human world? How come they did not know anything about it? They watched helplessly as they flew into the palace and stood there in a daze. They looked at each other, not knowing what to do. Unknowingly, Mengpa seemed to have been revived. She stood up again, but her face was still full of fear. However, her eyes no longer had the deathly gray from before. Her lips trembled as she muttered to herself, Finally, I don't have to die. That brat really knows Song Jianguang, and he's even a so-called noble guest. She did not dare to hope that Tang Zheng would say a few good words for her. She hurriedly left the palace and returned to her own bridge, wishing that none of this had happened. She was almost scared to death. In the palace, all the unrelated personnel retreated. Only Tang Zheng and Song Jianguang were left in the large palace. With regards to Song Jianguang's actions, Tang Zheng allowed him to do as he pleased and did not express any opinions. He had also guessed Song Jianguang's intentions. He was definitely afraid that Tang Zheng would say something out of line and embarrass him, causing him to lose face in front of his subordinates. Both parties sat down together. Song Jianguang smiled and said, I wonder what business do you have with me? Tang Zheng did not feign civility and directly said, I need to bring her back to life. Bring her back to life? Song Jianguang was shocked. His eyes widened as he stared straight at Li Xiaotian. Ever since he became the first king of hell, he had never heard of such a thing. Back then, Yi Xuanji could be resurrected because his soul was captured by the ghost realm for questioning. It was not because his life was over. Li Xiaotian was truly dead. He still wants to bring her back to life? Song Jianguang's expression turned serious. He directly said, That's impossible. Why is it impossible? There has never been such a precedent. Precedents are meant to be set. Tang Zheng did not back down. Li Xiaotian pressed on. Tang Zheng did not back down. She felt warmth in her heart, and couldn't help but grasp Tang Zheng's hand tightly. She also knew that all of this would be difficult, but hearing it from Song Jianguang's mouth, she felt that her hopes were even slimmer. Song Jianguang saw that Tang Jing did not have the slightest intention of backing down, and his heart was also very shocked. He was determined. However, Song Jianguang still firmly shook his head. Anyway, with my strength, it's impossible to do this. Then who can do it? Tang Jing asked. Song Jianguang thought for a while, and said, in this ghost realm, only the Dizang of Goguryeo may be able to do it, but I dare not guarantee it. Tang Jing secretly nodded. He did not expect Song Jianguang to be able to help. He came to the ghost realm to find the Dizang of Goguryeo. Then where is the Dizang of Goguryeo? Tang Jing asked. Song Jianguang wanted to say something but hesitated, as if there was something that was difficult to say. Tang Jing frowned, and said, is there something that you can't say? Song Jianguang smiled embarrassedly, and said more doubtfully than crying, if it were anyone else, I would definitely not tell them this news. But you are different. You are an important guest of mine, Song Jianguang. Of course, I will not hide it from you. Then hurry up and say it. Tang Jing was a little impatient. Song Jianguang was taking too long. The Dizang of Goguryeo is missing. Missing? In an instant, Tang Zhang's eyes widened in surprise, and he stared at Song Jianguang in disbelief, his gaze extremely sharp. Song Jianguang met his gaze, and said, why would I lie to you? Ever since the ghost realm was downgraded to a small world, the Dizang of Goguryeo went missing. Isn't he the lord of the ghost realm? How could he go missing? The Dizang of Goguryeo is indeed the lord of the ghost realm, but he does not directly lead it. The power of the ghost realm is still the same as before, but there are some slight changes. Song Jianguang explained. Tang Zheng was deep in thought. The Dizang of Goguryeo was indeed different from others. He was not attached to power, so it was not surprising that he did not directly lead the ghost realm. But, why would he go missing for no reason? Is there really no clue at all? Tang Zheng asked unwillingly. Song Jianguang shook his head regretfully. Actually, you also know the situation in the ghost realm. If they knew the whereabouts of the Dizang of Goguryeo, who knows how many kings of hell would try to curry favor with him. This sentence was not false. The Dizang of Goguryeo's position was too high. His decision would affect the situation in the ghost realm, as well as the future of the various forces. If they could build a relationship with the Dizang of Goguryeo, all the kings of hell would spare no effort to do so. Tang Zheng stared at Song Jianguang without blinking. Song Jianguang's eyes were open, and he had no intention of hiding anything. Tang Zheng observed for a long time. In the end, he confirmed that Song Jianguang was telling the truth. The Dizang of Goguryeo had really gone missing. Then, where could he go to find the Dizang of Goguryeo? Since Song Jianguang said that there was no way to bring Li Shaotian back to life, the other kings of hell would not have any good ideas. Therefore, it was useless to look for the other kings of hell. He could only look for the Dizang of Goguryeo. This time, he was at a dead end. Chapter 1357. Song Jianguang chuckled bitterly. He didn't expect Tang Zheng to be so stubborn. He didn't know what to do next. Tang Zheng's eyes grew resolute as he stared intently at Song Jianguang. You're a King Yen Luo of hell, so you're definitely more informed than I am. Don't tell me you really don't have any clues at all? Qin Ye's sharp gaze caused Song Jianguang's heart to skip a beat, and he thought to himself nervously, this kid's aura is completely different from the last time we met. It actually gives me a sense of apprehension. Just what level has his cultivation increased to? Song Jianguang knew Tang Zheng's true strength, so he didn't dare to provoke him. Under the gaze of that pair of eyes that seemed to be able to see right through his soul, he replied guiltily, it's not like we don't have any clues at all. What clues? Tang Zheng's heart stirred, and he immediately asked. Song Jianguang wasn't in a hurry to answer. Truth be told, it's not just me. The other kings of hell are also trying their best to track down the whereabouts of the Dizang of Goguryeo. All of them have more or less received some information. If we can gather all of this information together, we might just be able to find the Dizang of Goguryeo. Tang Zheng was stunned. He didn't expect Song Jiangwang to say something like this. Isn't this the same as gathering all of the information of the 10 kings of hell? This wasn't an easy task. After all, Tang Zheng was an outsider. Even though because of the Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, his position was extraordinary, but when it came to important matters, not everyone in the 10 Yama kings would listen to him. At the very least, the king Yen Luo might not listen to him. If not for Tang Zheng, the king Yen Luo wouldn't have been relegated to second place and become a subordinate to the Dizang of Goguryeo. This was equivalent to Tang Zheng dragging the king Yen Luo of hell down from his throne. The king Yen Luo of hell was already benevolent enough to not seek him out for revenge, so why would he still provide him with information? Tang Zheng was well aware of this. But since things had already come to this, he had no other choice but to grab hold of this slim chance of survival. Are you sure this method will work? Tang Zheng asked. Song Jiangwang hurriedly waved his hand. I can't guarantee anything. It's just that according to my analysis, this is a feasible method. Okay, let's do that. Tang Zheng made the final decision. Song Jiangwang's eyes lit up. He didn't seem to reject this decision and said with great interest, then what do you plan to do? Send a message to all the other kings of hell. Tell them to come here. I want to ask them for information on the Dizang of Goguryeo. Tang Zheng thought for a while and said, I can pass on the message, but whether or not they will come is beyond my control. Song Jiangwang said. Tell them that I am looking for the Dizang of Goguryeo and ask them to cooperate. I will remember this friendship. Song Jiangwang gave him a deep look and said, all right then. Of course, Song Jiangwang was willing to pass on this message. The other kings of hell weren't fools. They knew very well that Tang Zheng and the Dizang of Goguryeo had a close relationship. This time, Song Jiangwang was the one who passed on the message. This meant that he had a close relationship with Tang Zheng. This was also a way to get closer to the Dizang of Goguryeo. At the very least, in the eyes of the other kings of hell, Song Jiangwang and the Dizang of Goguryeo's relationship would improve. If anyone dared to deal with Song Jiangwang in the future, they would have to think twice. Only the wise and far-sighted King Song Jiang would be able to come up with such a meticulous plan. Tang Zheng wasn't in the mood to pay attention to these twists and turns. All his thoughts were on Li Shaotian. Then I'll send someone to bring you to rest. For the next few days, you can stay here in peace. If you have any needs, feel free to ask. I'll do my best to satisfy you. Song Jiangwang said resolutely and heroically. Tang Zheng had no other choice. This was the only way. Song Jiangwang's subordinates led them to settle down. It was said to be one of the best rooms in the palace. The standard was so high that it was rarely seen in the world. Tang Zheng guessed most of Song Jiangwang's thoughts, but he didn't point it out. For the rest of the time, Tang Zheng simply took Li Shaotian to wander around the city to experience the local customs of the world of spirits and souls. It was an eye-opener for her. Tang Zheng knew that waiting was painful, especially for Li Shaotian. Life and death were in an instant. One could imagine how she felt. He did his best to hope that Li Shaotian would forget her troubles and immerse herself in joy. Li Shaotian was indeed very happy on the surface, but very few people knew the pain in her heart. She was only unhappy in private. She once fantasized about dissuading Tang Zheng and telling him not to waste his energy. But when these words were on the tip of her tongue, she had to swallow them back. She didn't have the heart to dampen Tang Zheng's enthusiasm. Tang Zheng was indeed very active. Every day, he asked Song Jiangwang about the other kings of hell's replies. The world of spirits and souls was vast. This caused the transmission of news to be very slow, but it was not a problem for the many kings of hell. They had teleportation arrays in each city that were connected to each other. They could send people and news to each other, thus greatly reducing the time and distance. Under Tang Zheng's relentless questioning, Song Jiangwang always paid attention to the news. Finally, there was a reply. Some kings of hell agreed to come and mentioned Tang Zheng in their reply, hoping to meet him. Tang Zheng didn't expect to be so popular. He had caused such a big commotion in the world of spirits and souls. These people probably hated him to the core, but now they were rushing to meet him. All of this was very different from what he expected. He thought for a moment and understood the reason. These kings of hell were not coming for him, but for Dizang of Goguryeo. They all wanted to do the same, like Song Jiangwang, to curry favor with Tang Zheng. This kind of advantage could not be given to others. Tang Zheng didn't care about their thoughts. As long as they came, he would have a way to get the information he wanted from them. Finally, the appointed day arrived. Tang Zheng and Li Xiaotian arrived at the teleportation array early in the morning, looking forward to witnessing a miracle. Tang Zheng was no stranger to the teleportation array. After all, he had once cast a spell in his backyard to connect to an overseas island. Li Xiaotian had also experienced the teleportation array several times, but this time was different. It was the king of hell that was teleporting back, and it was related to her life and death. She prayed silently in her heart, hoping that the king of hell could bring good news. Her eyes were almost shining as she stared at the teleportation array, not letting go of any details. Powerful yin qi surged around the teleportation array, creating circles of ripples. The teleportation array began. Li Xiaotian's eyes instantly widened. Tang Zheng also narrowed his eyes slightly. His pair of small eyes were very vigilant as he secretly circulated his power. Although the 10 kings of hell were here, they were not his friends after all. What if someone attacked him? Therefore, he was fully prepared. Song Jiangwang stood at the side and watched with interest. The ripples of power became more and more intense, and a figure appeared on the teleportation array. Chapter 1358. A figure walked out of the teleportation array, followed by a second and a third. Not long after, the teleportation array was filled with people. Tang Zheng stared at the people who came. One by one, the kings of hell led the way, followed by the ghost kings and ghost generals they brought. What a big lineup. Tang Zheng said. Dizang of Goguryeo had always wanted all living beings in the ghost realm to be equal, without the so-called privileged class. Now it seemed that this hope was too beautiful and did not come true. At least, the 10 kings of hell were still the privileged class. Tang Zheng came from the human world. The forces in the human world were more complicated. How could all living beings be equal? Therefore, he had a deeper understanding. Dizang of Goguryeo's wish was very beautiful, but it was unrealistic and ignored the most fundamental thing of human nature. Could it be that the disappearance of Dizang of Goguryeo has something to do with this? He suddenly had a thought. He shook his head and threw away this wild thought. One by one, the kings of hell arrived with their subordinates. They also looked at Tang Zheng curiously. If it wasn't for the fact that this was initiated by Tang Zheng, they definitely wouldn't have come. After all, this was Song Jiangwang's territory. If Song Jiangwang had any bad ideas, wouldn't they be walking into a trap? Regarding Tang Zheng, they had too many doubts and shock in their hearts. When they met again, pairs of sharp eyes fell on him, as if they could see through him. However, they failed. Tang Zheng was becoming more and more unfathomable. The teleportation array closed. Tang Zheng looked at the dense crowd and counted them one by one. He was stunned for a moment. Including Song Jiangwang, there were a total of 9 kings of hell. Only King Yanluo was missing. Song Jiangwang also noticed this, and the corners of his mouth curled up into an unfathomable smile. He and King Yanluo had always been at odds, fighting openly and secretly. Even after Dizang of Goguryeo appeared, the two of them seemed to be at peace on the surface, but there were still undercurrents surging. King Yanluo did not come to the appointment, which was exactly what Song Jiangwang wanted. In fact, it was also within his expectations. King Yama was also very cautious. He would not easily take the risk and come to Song Jianwang's territory. In addition, King Yanluo's hatred for Tang Zheng was the strongest among all the kings of hell. It was equivalent to Tang Zheng directly or indirectly changing the structure of the entire ghost realm. King Yanluo was the most affected. He was already suppressing a stomach full of anger. Seeing Tang Zheng and having nowhere to vent his anger, he was afraid that he would suffer from internal injuries. Song Jianwang glanced at Tang Zheng. He knew that Qi Ni had also noticed the absence of the King Yanluo of hell, and his heart bloomed with joy. As the host, Song Jianwang stepped forward and said warmly, "Everyone has come from afar and must be tired from the long journey. Come with me to take a rest. This is the first time many of you have come to my Songjiang city. As the host, it is only natural for me to show you around." However, the kings of hell did not appreciate it. They did not spend so much effort to come here just to admire the scenery of Songjiang city. However, they could not help but glance at Song Jianwang and Tang Zheng. They muttered in their hearts, when did these two become so close? This was the effect that Song Jianwang had deliberately created. Seeing that he had achieved his goal, Song Jianwang was extremely pleased. Tang Zheng did not care about Song Jianwang's thoughts. He did not point out that Song Jianwang had only come to Songjiang city by chance. The Chakravarti king waved his hand and said, "Song Jianwang, we are not here to see you or to admire the scenery of Songjiang city. We are here for him." The other kings of hell agreed. Song Jianwang glanced at them meaningfully. These Yama kings were all biased towards King Yanluo, so Song Jianwang wasn't angry at all. He smiled and said, "Everyone, let's get straight to the point. I can understand your eagerness. Since that is the case, let's invite Tang Zheng to speak." Tang Zheng did not expect these kings of hell to be so direct. This was exactly what he wanted. In fact, the Chakravarti king was also here to investigate the situation on behalf of King Yanluo. Although King Yanluo did not want to see Tang Zheng, he did not dare to ignore him. Tang Zheng coughed and took a step forward. Li Xiaotian had been by his side the whole time. Seeing how he remained calm in the face of so many kings of hell, she could not help but smile. Without a doubt, Li Xiaotian worshipped the strong. This was something that was stored in her genes. It would not change even if she lost her memories. Tang Zheng's every move attracted everyone's attention. Everyone stared at him without blinking. "Dear kings of hell, I have troubled all of you to come all the way here. Thank you for giving me face. I will remember this," Tang Zheng said solemnly. King Qingguang had always been on good terms with King Yanluo. Seeing how the Chakravarti king had embarrassed King Yanluo, he was furious. This time, he quickly added, "You are too polite. Since you called for King Yanluo, no matter how busy we would have rushed over immediately." The other kings of hell chimed in as well. They were obviously on King Yanluo's side. This was equivalent to raising King Yanluo's prestige and status. The Chakravarti king and the others were furious, but they could not do anything. Tang Zheng did not pay attention to their scheming and directly said, "Everyone is busy, so I will not waste everyone's time. I want to find Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, and I heard that everyone has more or less clues about him. I hope that everyone will not be stingy and share it with me. Clues about the Dizang of Goguryeo?" All the kings of hell were stunned. King Yanluo did not mention this in the message sent by King Yanluo. Everyone was guessing Tang Zheng's purpose, but they never expected him to come for the Dizang of Goguryeo. Of course, they had clues about the Dizang of Goguryeo. However, this was top secret information and would never be leaked. No one wanted another king of hell to find the Dizang of Goguryeo before them. But this time, it was Tang Zheng who made the request. For a moment, many kings of hell were caught in a dilemma. Doubts arose in their hearts. They looked at King Yanluo meaningfully. Could it be that King Yanluo was purposely using Tang Zheng to ask for information about the Dizang of Goguryeo from them, so that he could find the Dizang of Goguryeo before them? They had to be cautious. Therefore, The king of Chakravarti and the others kept their mouths shut, as if they did not hear anything. King Yanluo was not worried. He immediately gave King Qingguang and the others a look. They understood. King Qingguang's loud voice rang out immediately. He laughed and said, "Ha ha ha, it's not difficult at all. If we don't help with such a small matter, it would make us seem too stingy." The other kings of hell nodded in agreement. They all expressed that they would tell him everything they knew. The king of Chakravarti and the others looked at each other, not knowing what to do. If it was any other matter, they would definitely share it without hesitation. However, this was information about the Dizang of Goguryeo. They could not make this decision. King Yanluo had already expected this. He said jokingly, "Since you are not saying anything, could it be that you are not willing to help Tangjeng?" The few of them remained silent, not knowing how to respond. Don't find excuses to say that you don't have any clues about the Dizang of Goguryeo. I don't believe this at all. Tangjeng won't believe this either. We are not 3-year-old children. Why would we believe such a lousy excuse? Humph, King Yanluo pressed on. The king of Chakravarti finally spoke. "King Yanluo, what do you mean by this? If we don't say anything, are you going to pry open our mouths?" King Yanluo was not angry. Song Jiangwang sneered, "For Tangjeng, I dare to do anything. Why can't I do this?" "You!" The king of Chakravarti and the others were furious. King Yanluo was blatantly threatening them. Moreover, he was using the excuse of standing up for Tangjeng. He was really shameless. King Yanluo was pleased with himself. He stared at the other party with an unfriendly expression. It looked like he was going to start a fight if there was any disagreement. "King Yanluo, you are not the only one in charge in the world of spirits and souls. If you want to pry open our mouths, you need to have the ability to do so." "Humph, luckily we did not stay in your palace." This is the teleportation portal. We can activate it at any time and leave this place. Do you think you can stop us?" The king of Chakravarti said angrily. They did not leave the teleportation portal because they were worried that King Yanluo would attack them. Therefore, they stayed in the teleportation portal so that they could retreat at any time. From this, it could be seen that the situation in the world of spirits and souls had not eased at all. The so-called calm and peaceful atmosphere was just a facade. Is that so? Are you so confident that you can leave my Songjiang city? King Yanluo raised his eyebrows and said meaningfully. The king of Chakravarti and the others were shocked. "King Yanluo, what have you done? This is Songjiang city. Of course, I am the one in charge. Not just anyone can come and go as they please," King Yanluo said in a low voice. "Activate the teleportation portal," King Yanluo ordered in anger. His subordinates immediately cast spells and tried to activate the teleportation portal. Mana fluctuated, but it was immediately extinguished and disappeared without a trace. The teleportation portal failed. How did this happen? The king of Chakravarti and the others were shocked. They looked at each other and then at King Yanluo. King Yanluo said proudly, "I said before that this is Songjiang city. You can only leave with the permission of me and Tangjeng. Otherwise, don't even think about leaving." The king of Chakravarti shouted hysterically, "King Yanluo, you are so cruel. You did not have good intentions when you called us here. We came because of Tangjeng, but we did not expect to fall into a trap." Seeing that both sides were at daggers drawn, Tangjeng finally spoke, "Everyone, please calm down. I did not invite you here with the intention of harming you. I am looking for the Dizang of Goguryeo. I just hope that you can help me generously." Although King Yanluo was suspected of using Tangjeng's name, Tangjeng did not want to correct him. After all, King Yanluo was standing up for him. Other than his reputation in the world of spirits and souls, he did not have much strength or capital. Since King Yanluo was willing to stand up for him, he would not nitpick and reject such good intentions. Seeing that Tangjeng's tone had softened, the king of Chakravarti and the others did not immediately flare up. They looked at each other and compromised. "It is not that we do not want to help you, but we do not want to let King Yenluo take advantage of us. This is my business and has nothing to do with him. There is no issue of letting him take advantage of us, Tang Zheng explained. But this is Songjiang City. Once he gets a lead on us, he will definitely find the Dizang of Goguryeo before us, the king of Chakravarti said straightforwardly. King Yenluo glared at the king of Chakravarti. How dare he not give him face? Then what do you want to do? Tang Zheng asked. Go to Fengdu with us, the king of Chakravarti had a plan. This was specially instructed by King Yenluo before they left. No. King Yenluo rejected loudly. You're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.